Foley, Director Heft,
Present.
Director Munsing, Director O'Neill, Director Vixerick,
Here.
Alternate Moore, Director Beal,
Here.
Director Kring, Director Miller, Director Murphy, Vice Chair Puckett, Director Voigts, Director Bartlett,
Here.
Director Kelly, Director Marriott, Chair Shea,
Yes.
Director Wagner, Director Chamberlain. We have quorum on both agencies.
Thank you. At this time, members of the public may address the boards regarding any items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the boards, but no action may be taken on off-agenda items unless authorized by law. Comments shall be limited to 2 minutes per person and 1 hour for comments unless different time limits are set by the chair, subject to the approval of the boards. At this time, I realize that we only have 4 speakers. Therefore, I wanted to use my discretion to allow the public speakers from 2 minutes to go to 3 minutes. So the first person, Ms. Michelle Schumacher. Welcome back to the TCA board meeting.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to be here. Happy summer. I was talking to a dear family friend yesterday, and they were explaining how their family of 4, lovely, lovely couple, we've played soccer with them for years, they're moving out of California. Why would anyone want to leave our beautiful state when we've got this weather? It's called taxation. It's called the cost of living. It's called taxes. You guys are in a unique position today. You're here talking about the budget to approve it. People are leaving. Good people are leaving. And anyway, so we've got a budget here that includes toll increases. It includes a refinance. It includes a capital improvement project layout that nobody actually even supports or wants. It's getting in the way for your 91 connector in Riverside, South Orange County. This has been proven that will make mobility worse. So let's not spend the money when we don't need to. Also, I find it really curious that the TCA and its claims of being so cash flush is not maintaining their own toll roads. The director of Caltrans just left, and they left a $137 billion backlog for maintenance projects. If this agency now claims to have the money to maintain their roads, they should be doing so, because Caltrans has some other work to do that would actually improve mobility in Orange County. So that was another thing. I don't know how, again, you can approve the budget when the development fees have not been reviewed. This, there's no research that you guys have presented in 2 years to justify these plans for this mobility relief effort, and you're spending a fortune on it. And at some point, we've got to just say, hey, what are we doing? You guys need to be the brakes on this agency to start asking some questions. We noticed that there's an amendment proposed for the JPA agreement. That too was very concerning. If you read it, it's basically that you guys are supposed to be pushing the TCA's agenda and taking out the free thought. At some point, you guys are in this position because people knew that you could be counted on to represent us and stop this massive hemorrhage and taxation. So this isn't supposed to be a rubber stamp approval of all the maximum amounts. So we're really hopeful to see some true leadership today, and have a good morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, Mr. Bob Colesclaw. Welcome.
Good morning. My name is Bob Holtzclaw, and the first picture that you see on the left right there is a picture of Bake Parkway taken in at 6:40 p.m., which runs from the I-5 Lake Forest, passed through the 241, and behind that is the 241 toll roads. The reason why we took this picture is because a home developer didn't see any traffic problems building when he proposed 800 homes to be built to the left of that picture. Here's a copy of the flow of traffic going through Lake Forest right here, and it comes from the Public Works Department. It shows the flow of any given day from the I-5 figures. Here's from Bake Parkway, 72,000 vehicles. Lake Forest, 59,300. El Toro Road, 54,000, for a total of 185,300 vehicles in a given day. This thins out as you drive through Lake Forest past the 241 toll road. Here are the figures from the 241 toll road for the main 4 arteries that go east and west. 19,000 vehicles in a given day at Alton Parkway, 26,600 vehicles at Bake Parkway, 20,900 vehicles at Lake Forest Drive, and 35,000 in El Toro Road, for a total of 102,300 vehicles. The loss is only 83,000 vehicles given in a day. Now, are those 102,300 vehicles getting on the 241 toll road? Hardly. Since the flow of traffic in a given day on the 241 road at a given day is only 36,000 vehicles. Here's a picture of the 241 at 6:30 p.m., almost the same time as the picture on the left. I only count 15 cars going from Irvine. Is this what you're planning on building all the way down to San Clemente for 15 cars? What this is telling me as an engineer, the 241 and 133 is a complete failure. Lake Forest residents refuse to pay for a toll road when they've already paid for the road in the beginning. It doesn't help move traffic through the city. It doesn't cut air pollution, and it doesn't take any pressure off the I-5 or San Diego freeway. This is nothing more than a CEO making $400,000 and political hacks making political donations to stay in office. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Dave Sorosky.
Good morning, Board.
Good morning. Welcome.
Name's Dave Sorosky, and my horse's name is Ted, and he had asked me to include his buddy, Max. Well, from Chibuco Canyon, as you know, we're entering a very dangerous fire season. It's coming up. Things have been growing like crazy. And I would like to suggest to the Joint Board to consider opening trails on properties during red light conditions, not only for citizen patrols, but for emergency evacuation of livestock. And to possibly consider the use of Live Oak Canyon Stables, AKA the Saddle Club, for temporary sheltering and staging of horses during fire events. I look forward to seeing members at this coming Saturday's emergency evacuation drill we're going to have at O'Neill Park and Barbecue. To turn out to be the most effective plan during the 2007 fires. In closing, I would like to say, remember Redding, California. As I spoke to one of the firefighters there, they said the perfect plan is like a unicorn. We all know what it is. None of us have ever seen one. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, Mr. Jack Edith.
Good morning, Board. My name is Jack
morning.
Knight, and I'm an urban planner with Wild Heritage Planners, and I published the blog Wilder Utopia. I have a long history of working on mobility in South Orange County, and I'm very concerned about what this entity here, the TCA, is doing in terms of putting capital improvement into plans that are they fly against a complete reality. So I've written environmental impact reports. I've done transportation studies in many different places. I've worked for a number of consultants locally, and I work independently now. We worked on the original, 2000, back to 2004. We were working on solutions that would be smart and that would optimize mobility, and heading all the way down to San Clemente through the backcountry obviously didn't work. Now trying to send a bunch of alternatives throughout San Clemente, San Juan Capistrano clearly works even less. In my eyes, there's really only one option that could provide mobility that would be useful, considering 14,000 homes are underway development in Rancho Mission Viejo. And it's what we argued back then. We called it the Beltway, which would connect the 241 with the 73 and the 5 through what is now would have to be undergrounded. Back when we originally suggested it, there wasn't a lot of development there. So that's something that I could see, even though I don't support it, and I didn't support 14,000 homes there either, and we fought very hard to get that reduced significantly. And it still hasn't been built, so the worst effects on the surrounding communities are there, and there is no, that alternative is in the mix, sort of, but this board and the staff for TCA has not gotten behind it because it's unpopular to a lot of people. It's expensive to underground any facility. But when you're going to send out consultants for a full environmental impact report for all these alternatives that make no sense, anyone can sit there. You don't have to be an expert to say, well, let's cross this one off, cross this one. Why are we as a society spending money to do this? So, really, to approve this capital improvement program is insane, okay? It makes no sense. So is that what we're here, just to be rubber stamping things that make no sense? We have to get to solve the problems. That's why I became an urban planner. And I feel like the TCA totally should be abolished because their business model and the way they're operating is completely useless. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Madam Clerk, we have no other requests to speak forums.
No more.
Thank you. All right, items, consent calendar items 1 through 10 are strictly for San Joaquin Hills Transportation Corridor Agency board members. Vote. Do I have a vote? Or let me start with Director Moore. Oh, you're moving. No one is pulling out any of the items,
I am.
1 through 10?
I am.
Director Bartlett,
Thank you. I'd like to pull item 7, please.
acknowledged. Any other items? All right, do I have a motion to approve as stated? It was moved by Director Moore and it was seconded by Director Munzing. All in
Chair.
favor say aye.
Chair?
Aye.
Then we're going to have to do the minutes separately because alternate Moore was not here for the minutes for the previous
Oh,
meeting.
thank you very much. All right, let me pull out item number 1 for the balance of the items excluding 1 and 7. Do I have a motion to approve? It was moved by Director Munzing, seconded by?
Second.
By Director Heft. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. They were approved unanimously. Now we are getting to item number 1, excluding Director Moore for San Joaquin Hills. Do I have a motion to approve as stated?
I'll move it.
It was moved by Director Penzola and seconded by Chair Christina Shea. All in favor say aye. Aye. It was approved unanimously. And now getting into item number 7, Director Bartlett, the floor is yours, ma'am.
All right, thank you, Chair. So Valerie can probably answer these questions. So under the highlights, with regard to this item and creating this Native American tribal consultation policy, it says TCA was tasked with developing an early consultation policy for Native American tribal consultation for all future capital improvement projects. The policy emphasizes respectful, proactive, and collaborative engagement that ensures the tribe's input and involvement in the project pre-development process. And then the policy, among other things, will ensure consideration of the tribe's concerns. What does all that mean?
It means as we move forward with any planning for future projects, that we will coordinate with the Native American tribes within the area to take their input. This is something that the policy is something that has been replicated throughout the state, and our agency wants to put a good faith forward in working with the Native American tribes. But it's basically soliciting their input as we move forward with planning potential other projects to collaborate and coordinate any concerns or ideas that they have for historical information.
Okay, because I know in the past we were very cognizant of and sensitive to the ancient burial grounds?
Yes.
And is that what you're referring to
Yes.
here?
Exactly. So
In,
in-
in avoidance of those particular sacred areas to the tribes?
yes, yes, to get their
Okay.
input early on. And so we can work with the Native Americans to refine, mitigate, minimize any potential impacts and get their concerns early on. And so really it's a step forward to go in that direction.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you. With that, I'll move the item.
All right, it was moved by Director Bartlett and seconded by Vice Chair Chuck Puckett. All in favor, say aye. Aye. It was approved. Now, moving on to consent calendar items 1 through 9 and 11 through 13. Again, this is strictly for Foothill Eastern
Mr. Chair,
TCA
My
board members.
apologies, but the first item was San Joaquin, and Director Puckett, you said in Foothill. Oh, sorry. It's okay.
Oh,
I'll second.
who seconded that? Oh, Director Foley from the great city of Costa Mesa. Welcome back. Very good. It was moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, now we can move on to Foothill Eastern. Items 1 through 9 and 11 through 13 are all consent calendars and strictly for Foothill Eastern.
Move the item.
Mr.
Board
Chair,
members.
I'd like to pull number 1.
Very good. Item number 1 was pulled by Director Beal.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to pull item number 12.
Item number 12 pulled by Director Bartlett.
Move the balance.
Item number 4, please.
Item number 4 was pulled by Director Mueller. Any other items from Foothill Eastern to be pulled out for further discussions?
I'll still move the balance.
Very good. It was moved by Director Kring, and it was seconded by Chair Christina Shea. All in favor from Foothill Eastern, say aye.
Aye.
Very good. It was moved and approved. Now we are going back to item number 1. Director Beal, the floor is yours, sir.
I just pulled that to register an abstention because I wasn't here for that meeting.
So noted. Do I have a motion to?
Second.
It was moved by Chair Christina Shea and seconded by Director Kring. All in favor from Foothill Eastern?
Aye.
Very good. It was approved. Now we are getting to Director Mueller on item number 4. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As Chair of the Finance and Investment Committee, I'd like to summarize the item, and we're going to talk about, I want to talk about the unfunded pension liabilities before we get to the budget, and Ms. Potter will take over and kind of explain it. But the committee had been reviewing the status of the pension of agencies participating in the Orange County OSERS and reviewing the benefits of pay down. And in an effort to show the strong financial position of TCA, we wanted to take a look at our different options on how we can handle our unfunded pension liabilities. As most people know, a lot of agencies around the state, and a couple in this county as well, are facing unfunded pension issues. I'm the chair of OCFA. We have about $500 million in unfunded pension liabilities. My city alone has about $5 million. We're a small city, so it doesn't sound like a lot, but it's big to Dana Point. If you look at PERS and what's going on around the state, these are big issues that a lot of agencies, their backs are up against the wall and how they're going to address this. So we wanted to have a discussion in there about how in TCA's position, how do you handle this? Do you want to do a 115 pension trust to save money, to take off some of the top end of your payment? Or do you just want to pay cash for it? Or do you just want to continue down the path and make the minimum payments that we make every year? And after a robust discussion in committee, we made the decision to move to the board that we would go ahead and just pay off the unfunded pension liabilities, which today is about $12.8 million. That'll save us about $2 million in interest to OSERS, and show that we are in a very strong financial position. We're one of the few agencies in the county and along with the state that has the ability to go ahead and take this on directly. So I wanted to just give the report there. There was a long discussion about this. There are many options, and the one that the board's going to, or the committee is going to move forward is the paying it off. Another issue we took on in there were the term rate bonds. We're going to get to that later today. One of the questions we have $125 million in bonds that are going to mature in July. And the committee wanted to have the discussion, should we just pay those bonds off? We have the cash to do that currently. Or do we want to go ahead and refi them, which was the recommendation by staff. So we sent them back out to take a look at what our options were. And what they came back with is right now the bonds are at about 5%. And we think we can refi those down to about 3.54%, which will save us about $42 million over the life of those bonds. However, in about 3 years, we have another set of bonds that are going to come due that are at 6%. And so we took a look at that and we said, does it make sense just to go ahead and refi now, hold on to that cash as we're going through our CIP, which we're going to talk about later today as well, and hold the money and then take a look at paying down those bonds. And the recommendation from the committee again was to hold off and pay down the higher interest rate bonds if that's the will of the board in a few years. But just so you know, paying down the delta and paying down the bonds that are going to mature this year at the lower interest rate versus the bonds that will mature in 3 years will save about an additional $95 million by taking that path. So our recommendation today is that we go ahead and refi the bonds that they're maturing in July, and that we'll take a look at those bonds in 3 years and take that same $125 million and pay that down for the savings of $95 million. So that's my report, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Mueller, and thank you for your comments. So would you like to move that item?
Point of order.
Yes, I'll move it.
Point of order. I believe it's item 2 that you pulled from the agenda, not item 4, just to correct it. So we'll still need to vote on 4. Item 2 is committee reports.
This is regarding item 2 or item 4?
This is regarding his item.
Which was, I'm sorry, it should have been item 2, which were the committee reports. I thought I had written down item 4.
Okay, so Director Marriott?
Yeah, well, this is easy. I can just, I don't even need the microphone. So the pool that's, could be refinanced at 3 and change is 125 million. The pool that can be refinanced in 3 or 4 years is also 125 million. So we're paying, so where do you get the delta? What's your math behind the delta?
We can discuss it in great length.
So
once-
this is just a report. This is actually an item.
But he's moving the item, is he not?
No, I'm moving the director's report, not the
Fair
item
enough.
Exactly.
itself.
Fine, thank you.
So let's save time. All right, let's go back. So you pulled item number 4.
I meant item 2 for
Correct.
the director's report.
Well
I'm sorry.
taken. So let's have him, only Foothill Eastern. Let's have a
I'll
motion.
move item 2.
Two,
And-
that was,
That was item 4. You pulled item 4.
Okay, I'll move item 4.
second.
Any second on that?
Second.
It was seconded by Director Craig. All in favor from Foothill Eastern, say aye.
Aye.
It was approved. Now we go back to the real item number 2.
That was already approved.
We already voted on it.
We already.
Okay, then we are clear.
Yeah.
Madam Clerk, we are okay? Okay. Now, item number 12, Director Bartlett.
Thank you, Chair. So in looking at this item, we're increasing the sheriff's mounted patrol for an additional 8 hours a week. So in reviewing the item since 2016, there's been a significant decrease in the number of trespassing incidents. So if we had a significant decrease, why are we increasing patrol?
So, good morning, Doug Fermenga, Environmental Planning Manager. So we're not increasing the hours. We keeping the hours exactly the same, so it will still be 1 day a week, but we have the ability to go to 2 days a week, which will be the extra 8 hours. So we are keeping the hours as they are right now, which is 1 day a week. But the contract is designed to where we have the flexibility to go to 2 days a week if there's need to do that.
Okay, even though we've had a significant decrease in trespassing. I'm not following the
Yeah.
logic.
Well, so that's the.
Director Bartlett, the increase is in order to increase the contract value to continue the 8 hours per week. So we have had a significant decrease, but it's only because we're using both the sheriffs as well as the private patrol services. So we would like to continue that for another year as we work with other entities to consider taking ownership of that property. But right now it's very effective and we are seeing the decline, but it's only because we have the presence of both patrol services.
Okay, as I understand it, based on the staff report, it says the proposed contract provides an additional 8 hours of patrol up to 16 hours per week. So we're going from 8 to potentially 16.
In the past, when we've had issues with our private patrol where we've had to find other private patrol services, we've had to increase the sheriff to cover those services. Right now, we have both parties in place, but in the event that the private patrol people are not able to provide the services, we have the sheriff as a backup where they can do the 16 hours per week. So it's only in the event that the private patrol people cannot provide the services.
Okay, that would have been helpful to put in the staff report. We
Okay.
just have this one page that
Okay.
says we're billed on an hourly basis.
Right.
So that's why I had some
Okay,
questions.
we apologize for that.
Okay, I think you've answered my questions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, and I'll move the item.
It was moved by Director Bartlett. It was seconded by Director Trish Kelly. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
It was approved unanimously. Now, we are getting to the board business items 14 through 24. Items 14 and 15 will be discussed jointly, but then voted on separate items. Item 14, San Joaquin Hills Transportation Corridor Agency only. Madam Amy Potter, the floor is yours.
Yes, good morning. So this item is for the approval of the fiscal year 20 budgets. And we've been working very closely with the board throughout this entire process. We've had presentations beginning back in March and April to the various committees where we went through in detail all of the project initiatives, the staffing plans, and the contracts that we were planning to include in the budget. And then in April, we had a very detailed budget workshop that the entire board was invited to attend. And then in May, we had a follow-up workshop that went through in detail again this budget that's before you today. And so this budget that we have before you today for Foothill Eastern includes total sources of $666.5 million. And of that amount, $232 million represents revenue. The balance that you see there are available reserves that are available for the current budget and for future budgets. On San Joaquin Hills, the total sources are $460.6 million. And of that amount, $206.6 million represents revenue, and the balance, your available reserves, once again, will be used for the current year and future years. The total expenditures before you today, included in the budget for Foothill Eastern, total $199.4 million, and San Joaquin $146.1 million. And I'd like to point out there, as the chair of the Finance Committee just discussed about our pension payoff, which is the next item, we have included those amounts that you see there in this budget, and that's the change from the last time that we presented this to you. And so before you in your packets, you have resolutions for each of the agencies that outline all of the items that you are approving as part of this budget. This slide here represents or summarizes the items that are on the Foothill Eastern budget resolution. And this slide summarizes the items that are on the San Joaquin Hills budget resolution. And so with that, the staff recommendation is to approve those resolutions that would approve the budgets in the amounts that you see on the screen. And that concludes my presentation, and I would be happy to answer questions.
Thank you very much. Now we open the discussions. Director Bartlett.
Thank you, Chair. So with regard to this item 17 on the capital improvement plan, I have some concerns. So relative to some of the projects that are contemplated in South County, it doesn't provide for the Caltrans and OCTA concurrence for various projects. And on the 24191, on the environmental document and timeline, we have to coordinate as an agency, we have to coordinate with other agencies when you've got a continuous corridor. So we need to continue to coordinate with OCTA and RCTC. And then thirdly, I have some concerns about a TCM substitution of projects because there are certain air conformance requirements for AQMD, and that relates to also impacts with air quality and federal funding in the SCAG region. So can you address those items, because I think there needs to be some clarity within this item?
Yes, but for clarification, were you referring to the capital improvement program or the budgets that we're on?
The capital improvement program itself.
I think, is that item 17?
That's it.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yes, we're gonna discuss it separately.
I just flipped ahead in my book, sorry.
It's
Never
okay.
mind.
That's okay.
Never
So
mind.
let's
No wonder we
go
got some
back.
confused looks in the audience. Okay.
So let's
Yeah,
go back to the budget item 14.
Absolutely, yes. I am
Any
so sorry
other
about that.
discussions by any board members?
I have
Director Bain.
couple of questions. Looking on page 23, I think of the staff report, says we're budgeted for, I think, 4.7 million in salaries and compensation. And I noted that we had a reduction, I think, in headcount from 81 in fiscal year 2012 down to 68 presently. But when I went back and looked at the 2012 fiscal year budget, we had salaries and wages, I think, of about 2.8 million for that year, and this year we're budgeted for 4.7 million. So why is there such a huge disparity between, are we including consultant? in that,
No,
or-
there's been a shift over the years on the allocation between the two agencies. And so as our business has changed, we have allocated more of the salaries to San Joaquin than in the past. So that's really the difference there. They have grown. I mean, certainly there was a drop at that time for the salaries, and then, each year they grow slightly.
Okay, but so salaries haven't doubled?
No.
Okay. And then the allocation, I saw an allocation for all other cash available. It was listed for 70 million. What is that notation? It was,
On which page are you?
I wish I knew. I
Okay.
made this note and now I can't find it. I was looking for it. It was all other cash available was 70 million. If you could, I'll try to look for it. I have my notes somewhere, but I want to know what that is. And then the last, we had net toll revenues projected to increase by 5 million for this budget, but the current budget is, I think the toll, so yeah, we had a net increase of 5 million, but our toll revenues for this current budget are millions less than they were, I think, last year. So are we just including the increase in existing tolls to that, or why is that number?
No, what you're seeing there is that one of the things that we're doing with this budget, so beginning July 1st, is we are eliminating the account maintenance fees. So we were able, because we're implementing sticker transponders, so the 6C technology, we're going to save a significant amount on the cost of transponders. And so the board, during the year, through the discussions, had made the decision to pass on that savings to our customers. And so what you're seeing there is that we also had some modifications to the discount program, which now the discount will apply to TCA customers. So not other customers from other agencies who use our roads, but TCA customers who have a prepaid balance, who have met the threshold of $40 total per account in the prior month. And so what you see there is an increase to the revenue itself, the toll revenue, versus the decrease to the account maintenance fees.
Okay. And Director O'Neill helped me and saved me. The reference was on page 9.
Okay.
This is what happens when you read these very late at night. With a young baby, thank you.
Hold on, I just somehow.
So I'm looking at the top of page 9, so resources, it talks about all other cash available to fund current and future budgets. And if you look at the fiscal year 2019 estimated actuals, it's at 161,804, and then the proposed budget 2020 jumps to 233,386, so roughly 70 million. I wanted to know what that increase related to.
Yes. So essentially, if you move to the page prior to that, page 8, you can see the reconciliation of all of the cash that we have on hand, and then the expected use of that cash, and then less all of the reserves. And so in essence, that would be the fact that our unrestricted cash grows each year, because remember, as in accordance with the bond indentures, we have to have our revenues come in at an amount in excess of our operations and our debt service, so it can't be flat. It has to be an amount above that 130%. So that's that additional amount of cash that then comes out and adds to our unrestricted cash.
Got it. Thank you. I appreciate the work that went into this, so thank you for answering those.
All right, any other discussions on this budget item? I hear,
I'll make a motion to move.
because this is a budget item, I wanted to make sure that we have 2/3 votes. Therefore, please, for those in favor, signify your vote. This is strictly San Joaquin Hills Transportation Corridor Agency. Signify by raising your hand.
Well, we have
All
a,
in
we have a
favor?
I need a
motion, but
second.
not a second.
I need a second.
Okay, it was moved by Chairwoman Christina Shea, and it was seconded by Director Trish Kelly. All in favor, signify,
Aye.
raise your hand.
And swear after me.
Madam Clerk, we have the votes, correct?
We'll give her time. She's counting.
I'll make the motion for Foothill to approve.
We haven't got to the foothill yet. We are okay? Okay.
Is there a report of the vote? We should.
Can we
All right.
register the noes, please?
All those that are not in favor, please raise your left hand.
Raise your left hand.
What was wrong with the old way?
The old way. Okay, Director Wagner and Director Marriott are the only two not in favor of the presented budget. Very good, thank you very much. All right, now we are moving to Foothill Eastern TCA board members.
Move it.
It was moved by Director Kring and it was seconded by Director Bartlett. All in favor signify your vote, your yes vote by raising your right hand. Only Foothill Eastern.
Aye.
Madam Clerk, we made it?
Made it.
Very good. All those that are in opposition of what has been presented, Director Wagner and Director Marriott. Very good. Thank you very much. All right, moving on to item number 16. This is a joint item of San Joaquin Hills and Foothill Eastern. The item is in reference to the payoff of pension liability. This is the one that I really love the most. Director Joe Mueller, who is the chairman of the Joint Finance and Investment Committee, is recognized for any potential additional comments on this item.
I think I covered that earlier in my comments.
Very
when
good.
I spoke on the wrong item, so.
Very good.
Okay, join the club.
We provide plenty of time for discussion. Okay, any other discussions on this?
Mr. Chair, I do. Of the $12 million, what was the OSHR interest rate that we were paying on that liability?
7%.
7%. So in this next annual year, what is our forecasted savings?
Right. So, okay. So what you're asking now, I think, is a little bit different because that was the interest rate. So we had a portion that was about 11% that we were contributing each year that was related to the unfunded liability, and the balance of about another 11 or 12% was for the normal cost of the pension. So that will be cut in half. So going from roughly 25% in half. The other thing, the question that you just asked is how much interest were we paying on this unfunded liability each year as part of the amortization of that unfunded liability, and that's 7%. And so that's really what I have up here before you, and I think it was summarized very well by the chair of the Finance and Investment Committee earlier. But really, these are the reasons why it makes sense for us to pay this off. Obviously, this does demonstrate your fiscal responsibility for pension obligations, which is really key. But also, there is a net present value savings of that. And I did calculate present value in this case. And so that is the difference between this 7% that we were paying on these annual payments versus the cash that we're currently earning on that unrestricted cash, the interest that we're earning on that unrestricted cash. And so that represents our savings.
Thank you.
Chairwoman Christina Shea is recognized.
Yes, thank you. And I just want to thank not only the board members that have been really pushing to get more of our money being used to pay down debt and to be getting, focusing in our future to look at what we're going to do with some of these bond refinancing because of the extra that we have, the reserves, cash reserves. So I just want to compliment not only our finance committee and all the members on that committee, but also our staff to work with us and be agreeable to pay this off. So it's a good step in the right direction. I know that some of the other agencies in the county have huge pension liabilities. I don't want to bring up that acronym that starts with O and ends with A.
Not mentioning names.
We won't mention any names, but I know their pension liabilities are very high. So I'm just pleased that we are showing good stewardship and paying this off. So thank you.
Director Heft is recognized.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to note for the record, I'm seeing here, I'm very busy, so I could be off, but I'm pretty sure I was actually at this meeting. On
Yes, you were.
page 2 or 3, it says that, I believe it says I was absent, and I wanted to have that corrected.
No, I remember that vividly.
Thank you.
So noted. Any other comments on this? All right, Director Moore.
I too am very pleased that you're paying off the debt, but I think it looks happier than it is because I don't think that return is even high, isn't it really, from the county? I think it's higher than, if you really took it to its true number, I think it would be worse. So it's a good thing we have to do this, but I think we need to understand that looking at numbers that they can be misleading because of that return. Thank you so much.
It's all right, I was going to add, I did vote yes on it as well, so I wanted to make sure that gets added as well, because
So
I'm
noted.
definitely in favor of paying down the debt.
For the record. Any other comments?
This is item 16, correct?
Yes, this is
I'll
item
make a
16.
motion to move item 16.
For San Joaquin Hills only, it was moved by Chairwoman Christina Shea.
Second.
It was seconded by Director Trish Kelly. All in favor from San Joaquin, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone in opposition? It was approved unanimously. Now moving on to Foothill Eastern. It was moved by Director Krang and seconded by
Christina. No, that's fine. Go ahead.
by Director Murphy. All in favor from Foothill Eastern, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, it was moved and approved unanimously. Very good. Moving on to item number 17. This is a joint item for San Joaquin and Foothill Eastern fiscal year 2020 CIP program. Our new chief engineer, Mr. Dave Spears.
Good
The floor
morning,
is yours.
Chairwoman Shea and Chairman Miniger and directors. I'm Dave Spears, the chief engineer, and it's my pleasure to present to you a brief summary of the capital improvement plan for FY20. This was presented to the committee, the Joint Capitals Committee, on May 22nd, and I'll go ahead and walk you through it. Our capital improvement plan identifies the agency's capital projects and system improvements that are being studied and implemented. The CIP is updated annually to reflect changes in status, cost, and schedules. And we are currently undertaking a system-wide traffic optimization study, to look at areas where congestion is beginning to show up, and it will help inform whether it's 5 years, 10 years, or what the timeline would be for us to be making system improvements. As you're aware, most of our corridors were built with very wide medians, and we have the opportunity to provide additional capacity by doing widening on the inside. And so with that, I will walk you through the plan. This is one of 5 categories we have in the plan, and this is kind of a look back at what we've accomplished already. After the initial build, there's 13 projects listed on this slide, and they represent $120 million of improvements, enhancements that have been made to our system during the recent years since the time that the project was originally constructed. So it's good for us to look at the fact that we are building and making improvements, and this CIP is a look forward for us to see what we're doing now and what we would like to do in the future. So this next graphic identifies 3 projects that we have under construction. On the top left side of the slide is the signage enhancements project, which is on both corridor or both agencies. We issued NTP to the contractor last month, And over the next 9 months, we look forward to having him implementing some updates to our signage in both corridors. And on the right side of the slide, you'll see on the top Oso Parkway Bridge, which is being constructed and implemented in partnership with the County of Orange. You received a detailed presentation on the progress last month, and that project's going very well. And then also in the bottom right, Los Patrones Parkway, which is being implemented in partnership with the County of Orange and Rancho Mission Viejo Company. So both of these projects are going well, and these combined, these three projects represent $148 million of investment for improvements to our system. Now this slide or graphic is identifying current capital projects that we anticipate completion by the year 2025. I want to highlight one on the left, the middle, that says Bikeway Gap Closure, 241 Portola Parkway. It's identified as a potential TCM substitution. And on the bottom right, also there's one that says northbound SR 241 Loma Lane Extension, also identified as a potential TCM solution or substitution project. These are projects that would help the region with reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And so we're evaluating the merit and the benefits of these projects right now and whether they will be brought forward and actually become TCM substitution projects. On the bottom left corner of the slide, I've identified Catalina View traffic improvements, and that's really right at the crest of the hill where the toll plaza occurs. That there's starting to see some congestion during peak hours, and this is one of a series of projects that we're looking at in light of this optimization study that's ongoing right now to see if and when we will be looking at improvements at this location. Then I want to highlight at the top middle of the slide the 241-91 Express Connector that you're all very familiar with. We're continuing to complete technical studies for this project in support of completing the environmental document. And just below that, I have also listed the Windy Ridge Channelizer study. We're currently coordinating directly with Caltrans about the potential of adding channelizers to deal with the challenge that occurs there daily with long queues going, backing up onto the 241 and looking at how we can address the problem with queue jumping. Now I have two slides about future capital projects, and both of these pertain to projects that we anticipate would be completed post 2025. I'll start with, let me get to the right page here. So on the middle left, there's one called SR 73 Improvements MacArthur to the I-405. OCTA is actually leading or will be initiating a PSR on that project, and we'll be coordinating with them. It's beyond the limits of our system, but certainly influences our system. And in the middle right side of the column, you'll see SR 133 Great Park Interchange. That's a project that's being advanced by 5 points in collaboration or coordination with the city. And that's another project that we are providing coordination on. I'll also highlight on the top right, the Jeffrey Road Interchange. We're in process right now working on a project study report for a potential interchange at that location. On the bottom left, you see the Glenwood Interchange projects. The initial phases that were constructed included ramps to the north, and at some point in the future, we will be looking at potential to add ramps to the southbound ramps at that location. And then the largest project on this is the bottom right corner that you're also very familiar with, the South County Traffic Relief Effort. And as you're likely aware, we obtained Caltrans approval of the project study report last month, and now we're beginning coordination with Caltrans and partners to advance to begin the environmental phase of that project. So this last slide is talking about our ultimate widenings, and this is again speaking to the idea that we can add capacity on our system because it was designed in such a way that we can add lanes on the inside. The two projects that are called out on the right-hand side, the SR 241 Loma segment, and then below that, the SR 241 widening southbound Santa Margarita Parkway to Bake Parkway. These projects that were already, we've completed preliminary documents on them, the planning studies, and obtained permits on them. So they could move very efficiently or quickly into the next phase. We've also identified, just on the left side of the slide, that we have system improvements throughout the corridor, and those future widenings, or throughout both corridors, those future widenings will be based upon this optimization study that we have ongoing. So the recommendation that have before you, the staff recommendation today for the two respective agencies, is that you would adopt the fiscal year 2020 capital improvement plan. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Any discussions? Director Bartlett.
Okay, let's try this again. So what I might recommend is, so at the county and some of my other boards and commissions, we actually have a banner at the top of the screen that indicates the agenda item we're on and what that is. So I think that would be helpful for the future, so Director Mueller and I wouldn't get confused. Anyway, with regard to this item,
Great point.
I have some.
I've been saying that for years.
I have some concerns with regard to the capital improvement plan. The projects are great projects to move forward, but I think we need to have some clarification in order for me to support the capital improvement plan in its entirety. So with regard to the South County traffic relief effort, it doesn't emphatically state that we provide concurrence and collaboration and cooperation with Caltrans and OCTA relating to the South County traffic relief effort, which I think it needs to be stated in writing because it's a coordinated effort amongst agencies. And then with regard to the 24191, and then looking at that timeline, again, another great project, but you've got a connected corridor there with the 24191 Direct Connect into the 91 Express lanes, the 10 miles of OCTA, and then the 8 miles of RCTC. So this is an entire connected corridor. We can't wave the magic wand and necessarily put our project in priority. We have to take a look at what's relative with the other projects, the 15 North and the I-15 interchange and other things. And the general purpose lane addition. So we have to coordinate with OCTA and RCTC in that connected corridor. I think it's very important. And then with regard to the TCM substitution, that northbound, the 241, the Loma Lane extension, again, we have to coordinate with all of the other regional agencies, OCTA and SCAG, because if we start moving in and out with TCM, the Transportation Control Measure substitutions, there are air conformity requirements that are very specific. And if we get out of bounds with that by swapping out substitution on projects, we get out of air conformity, and that could affect things within the SCAG region with regard to funding and other opportunities. So I think we need to have some specific clarification relative to the three items that I just mentioned in order for me to feel comfortable to support the CIP plan. So we could have staff respond.
So thank you, Director Bartlett. I had a conversation with the CEO of OCTA yesterday where they were gracious enough to have reviewed our items and provided similar comments to what you said, and we'll be happy to add that language into the plans to reflect those concerns.
Okay. So we're good then. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Any other comments?
I have a question.
Director Foley.
I'm sorry, could you clarify what that means exactly, what you just said? What language are you specifically adding in?
The need for coordination with our partners like Caltrans, OCT, RCTC. And the concern is that the way they're described, and they're kind of just fact sheets in the CIP, but they wanted it to be clear in there that those projects aren't just TCA acting alone, that there was language in the description of the project that acknowledged the coordination that's required for each of them.
I see. Thank you.
Yeah, so Chair, so the specific language that I'm requesting is not just coordination, but concurrence, because that means that we're all on the same page. And that's, I think, really important, that when we've got multi-agencies involved here, we coordinate projects, but we also have concurrence that, yes, we all agree that this is what we want to move forward in this priority, et cetera, whether it be a TCM substitution or the 24191 connector or the South County traffic relief effort. That coordination and concurrence with all of the stakeholders, I think, is really critical.
If I may interject and comment, Mr. CEO, I think that kind of concurrence would require the corresponding board members of those organizations to agree upon. You
Well,
can correct me if
it's
I'm
part of the
wrong.
project. We do have letters on record with those agencies, both on the TCMs and the South County projects. And Valerie, you want to just bring us up to date on what exists already?
Yeah, so on the South County project and also the 24191, we are coordinating with the other agencies, but and the TCMs as well. We have letters into OCTA suggesting that we want to start that substitution process. We have a meeting calendared for July, so we are coordinating behind the scenes to get that into SCAG and process. So there's not any risk for the funds and so forth, but the actual date to substitute those is 2022. So there's some time to get through this. But as far as involving OCTA and others for concurrence, I mean, we have to go through the process with all the agencies, whether the regulatory, the stakeholders, so they will be part of the process. That's just inherent in any project that moves forward with Caltrans as the lead especially.
Right, and while we have other letters of cooperation, which I think is great, I think that relative to our CIP, it's important to memorialize that we as an agency on these projects moving forward, whether it's the TCM substitution, South County mobility, or the 24191, to memorialize in our CIP that we do in fact recognize it's important, and we will coordinate and have concurrence with the other agencies so that we're all on the same page before these projects move forward.
Director Mueller?
I appreciate Director Bartlett's comments. I don't agree with concurrence because that would lead me to believe that if one agency says no, that kills the entire project. And I don't believe any one agency should have that kind of control over multiple agencies. I think coordination is absolutely important. I don't know I know what you're looking for, but I don't think concurrence between all the agencies mentioned is the right word, because it gives one agency the ability to stop everything. And I don't think one agency should have that kind of control over agencies that they don't have a voting right in.
Well, when if there's a disagreement with regard to priorities, so for instance on the 24191, the reason concurrence is important is because there are a multitude of projects within that 18-mile corridor that are very important. You've got an additional general purpose lane to add in both directions. You've got the I-15 direct connect. You've got the interchange. You've got a bridge project. And then you've got our 24191 direct connect project. And the reason concurrence is important is because we have to coordinate with these other agencies to say, okay, these are all great projects within this corridor, and priority, we collectively think that this one should come first, this one should come second. Because if you've got agencies that are kind of at odds with each other and you're pushing in projects within an already congested corridor, we could make things worse. So we really have to come to agreement with our stakeholder partners and say, okay, based upon what's happening in the entire corridor, we think this project should go first, this should go second, this should go third. They're all great projects. It's a matter of timing and priorities, but I think we need to really coordinate, and then Caltrans is of course a big part of that as well.
Fred, Mr. Chair, just real quickly,
Okay, Director.
I'm not disagreeing with what Director Bartlett's saying, but I think concurrence says something very different. And I guess my concern is you're saying TCA has to put that in their documents. Are you going to require that OCTA and RCTC put it in their documents as well, that they have to have our concurrence to move forward with their projects? So, you know, concurrence to me is too strong of a word here. I like coordination, that we do need to work and collaborate on how these should go down. And we need to understand that these agencies all want these projects to be done, and we are going to work closely together to schedule them. But concurrence to me says, you know, if I've got an outside agency that just says, I don't like your project, period, I can't move forward because I don't have concurrence.
That's a good
And so that's my issue with that term. I don't know what the proper term would be. I'm open to suggestion, but I don't think we should allow other agencies to dictate everything that we do if they don't like it. So,
Very good. Director Moore?
I really appreciate how clearly you, Director Bartlett, brought this up. But when I think about the word concurrence, con means with. I didn't look it up, but I know that the prefix. And so with does not mean that you are dominating or you're submissive. It means with. And I think your motion is very clear to me that I see it with, which is different from saying that you're going to be submissive or you're going to dominate. So I think that is a proper term.
Chairwoman Christina Shea.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that we're looking at this language. I do agree that tightening it up is important. I would maybe use the word seek concurrence, because if you're saying you want concurrence, I agree with Joe. They're just gonna, someone could just come in and shut us down. And I don't think that's, we're giving over our independence to other agencies. And I don't think OCTA would support any kind of language like that, working with us. And I don't think we should, but I would not have a problem suggesting we coordinate and seek concurrence, because that would be our goal. But I don't think demanding that we have concurrence will probably not be the right way to go. So if anyone has a response to that, I think that would be the better language.
Caltrans Director Chamberlain, the floor is 100% yours.
Thank you, Chair. I want to go on record saying that TCA has been working with Caltrans to seek concurrence, cooperation, and a collaborative spirit. There's no doubt in my mind about that. We have a very good partnership between Caltrans and TCA. More recently on the 91 corridor, I think there are significant challenges with sequencing on projects and which projects should happen first, second, third, fourth, or concurrent with each other. There is a requirement in statute to have RCTC and OCTA work collaboratively with Caltrans in developing a 91 implementation plan that very clearly talks about which projects should happen in that corridor as priority projects, not necessarily first, second, third, and fourth, but indicating these are the priority list of projects to move forward. The term in there, I believe, was a cooperative, work cooperatively together. It doesn't say that, that each agency needs to have concurrence, but that collaborative spirit was clearly there. We are currently working with both RCTC and OCTA, trying to get to some resolution on proper sequencing of projects in the 91 corridor. To that extent, my own director, myself, the District 8 director, and Mayor from RCTC, Daryl Johnson, and our CEO here at TCA are meeting on the 25th to try and work towards that collaborative spirit and sequencing of projects. The only assured thing here is that all agencies that want to make improvements to the state highway system do need concurrence from the Department of Transportation. We usually memorialize that in cooperative agreements and the like. I don't necessarily feel that that needs to be in the CIP. We have other means to document that, but I absolutely concur with the spirit behind Supervisor Bartlett saying that we all need to work collaboratively and cooperative together, and we need to continue to look at what's in the best interest of the public, because if we don't, they suffer.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yes, Chair.
Director Bartlett?
Okay, so based upon Dr. Chamberlain's comments, I know we've got information and things that are documented in other cooperative documents with the stakeholders, but I think something to the effect to have some clarity, to indicate that we will, coordinate and collaborate with other partner agencies and stakeholders with regard to setting priorities and sequencing of projects, I think would do it, because that's really important. When you've got a congested corridor and you've got 3 different agencies that are working within that tiny footprint of 18 miles, if you've got one agency that's putting forth a project that could adversely affect the other 2, we've all got bonds and financing on the different projects within the corridor. So it's really important for us to be cognizant of that effect, because not only with our projects that we want to move forward, but with the other agencies as well. So we're all stakeholders within this footprint. But I think having that additional clarity of language with regard to the coordination collaboration with respect to the priority and sequencing of projects within a corridor is appropriate, and I'd be okay with that.
Very good. Any other comments before I make my concluding statement on this? Okay. I've been a public servant leader in my home city of Laguna Niguel for over 23 years. I've never ever seen any time it came down to approving a CIP program that we went to the great city of Dana Point or the great city of Mission Viejo or San Juan Capistrano or the great city of Aliso Viejo by asking them for the concurrence on our CIP program. However, the buzzword, I think, the most critical, pivotal issues ought to be coordination, collaboration, and cooperation. The word concurrence to me has a lot of weight, and I want to shy away from that concurrence, because concurrence to me would mean that OCTA, SANDAG, SANDBAG, X, Y, and Z, RCTC, they all have to vote and agree on that.
What's Sandbag?
SANDAG, San Diego Association of Governments,
that and
our
Sandbag.
neighboring.
A-bag.
And SANDBAG is San Bernardino Association of Governments. On and on. I can move on, Director Wagner. So my take on this would be just simple, professional, organizational cooperation, collaboration, and coordination, but not concurrence, because to me that's heavy. Legally speaking, it can put us in different, situations. Isn't that correct? Our legal counsel, Mr. George Joseph?
That's correct. That would be my advice as well.
Thank you for your support. All right, before we make the motion, Chairwoman Christina Shea.
Thank you. Just one last quick comment. Just so we all know, our staff has been collaborating with Caltrans, with OCTA and RCTC for the last several years, right? We have been doing this day after day, week after week. So it isn't that we haven't done this, but I would suggest and do support having more clarity in language for moving forward. But I just wanted to be clear that this is something we've been doing continually, is collaborating with these different organizations. Thank you.
All right, Director Marriott.
Thank you. So I don't suppose there'd be support for it. It'd be nice to bifurcate current and future projects, but I don't anticipate voting for the budget. So it is what it is, and some of the current projects I think that are underway are very important, obviously. I wouldn't have hesitated with concurrence as regards OCTA as the Regional Planning Authority. I can see where it could be problematic with other ancillary agencies. The problem is that you don't get a technical qualifier, so there's little accountability. That's, so just as an observation and in the spirit of the debate and discussion, I don't think concurrence is such a horrid notion. We're using very vague terms, collaboration, et cetera, that historically on this board have been hard to qualify and hard to hold accountable with. That said, I expect to support it because the current projects are important, even if the future rather speculative. But thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Any other final comments? Director Moore?
I just decided to look it up, and concurrent means synchronous. And I think what your issue is, and I think you're trying to be very precise, and I have to really support this, is we do want to synchronize what we're doing. That's the same as coordinate. And so it is a word that clarifies the situation. And I support what your statement.
All right.
Call for the question, Mr. Chair.
Director Murphy?
No, just call for the question.
Second. All right, for San Joaquin Hills
I can't
only?
for San Joaquin, I'm just calling for the question.
Lisa needs to clarify. So we already heard what your language, it isn't coordinated. You already changed that. Is that correct?
Oh, okay, so there were 3 items. So with regard to the South County traffic relief effort and the 24191 Direct Connect project, that we will, coordinate and collaborate with the other stakeholders and the other agencies and Caltrans with regard to setting, priorities and the sequencing of projects, because that's really important. We can't get things out of sequence, but I think that would do it. And then with regard to the TCM substitution, I think we need some clarifying language in here that specifically states that if we start swapping out transportation control measure projects, we have to be cognizant of and compliant with the impacts to air quality, so that we don't swap out a project that puts everything in jeopardy with regard to things in the SCAG region on projects and federal funding in jeopardy.
Yeah, can I let our Chief Environmental Officer comment on the TCM portion of that?
Please.
Yeah, as we go through, all of our projects are TCMs, but as we go through the substitution process, you have to carefully move those through. You can't advance one TCM with other ones still on the table. So we will have to coordinate with EPA and SCAG. So I want to be a little cautious on how we insert language into our CIP until we start that process, because you have to do the emissions analysis to make sure it even can qualify. But just by the very nature of any substitution process, it's a very rigorous and regimented with SCAG. So it's already embedded in any substitution process, and so I'd rather leave the language that we have in the CIP as it is, because we have to go through the process with the analysis and also with the rules. So,
Part of the reason why we added that parenthetical potential TCM substitution project in the CIP was because those were new projects or new portions of projects that were being called out differently than in past years, and we wanted the board to know why. And it's because those are the projects that we're doing this analysis on to see if then they meet the air quality conformity requirements that we need to do. And that's a process that we're going through. I would also suggest that there's a pretty lengthy, because all of this goes through OCTA. I mean, they're the ones that control the gate on this TCM substitution process. And there's a very lengthy letter that outlines all of this. I will provide that to all the board members in my weekly update so that you can read that. But I think it covers all of your concerns.
Yeah. Well, I just want some clarifying language in there. Then again, we will coordinate and collaborate with our other stakeholders so that if TCA, for instance, wants to have a TCM substitution, that we go through this collaborative process and make sure that we don't substitute a project that would have an adverse impact to either air quality with AQMD or to potentially forego any potential federal funding, because depending on what we do that impacts air quality, it impacts projects and fundings within the SCAG region. So whatever we need to do to clarify that language in there is what I'm requesting. And, you know, staff can fine tune whatever language, but I think we need something more than what we have right now.
we'll add language in that will comply with the standard substitution process identified by SCAG and EPA.
That's perfect. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, could we clarify who made the motion and the second? Okay,
Nobody
that's what I
has
thought.
made
I
any
just-
motions
'cause we have
yet.
them calling for the question. I didn't think we had a motion. Okay.
Okay, maybe I should ask Director Bartlett that to make the motion, let's start with San Joaquin Hills only.
Okay, I will make the motion for San Joaquin Hills with, to pass the CIP with all of the the recommended changes that I've just stated about 14 times.
All right, it was moved and seconded by Director Moore from San Joaquin. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It was approved unanimously. No, this is not that significant like the budget. Okay,
I will move the Foothill
for
Eastern.
Foothill Eastern, it was moved by Director Krang and seconded by Vice Chair Chuck Puckett. All in favor from,
Mr. Chair, just a quick clarification. The language is now going to say coordinate and collaborate, correct? Not
Correct.
not,
No concurrent.
no concurrence. That word's gonna be expunged from
Okay.
the text to be correct legally speaking.
You just go ahead and spend all you want.
Sorry, Director Bartlett.
Nobody's acknowledging substitution.
All right, let's go back to Foothill Eastern. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Very good. It was approved unanimously. Great job.
Mr. Chair, just one clarification
Yes,
point.
Director Murphy, sir.
Not to elongate the discussion, but I think I picked up in the discussion earlier a comment around the projects that are surrounding the 18 miles as though they were all funded. And I think it's important to keep in mind that a number of the projects that are in that list aren't funded where others are. And I'm hoping that's part of the prioritization process for opportunities for mobility. And I just wanted to make sure that that's clarified for the record so that the record is accurate reflecting that discussion.
Thank you very much for that clarification and amplification. I totally agree with you that we cannot assume that we have the money and we have the, funding for all of them.
I'm done.
Okay, Director Wagner.
Point of order on item 18, I'm gonna have to recuse myself. Thank you.
So noted. All right, moving on to item number 18. This is a joint item for Foothill Eastern and San Joaquin, additional contract authorization for design, program management, and specialty contracting services. Corridor Manager Juliet Sue, the floor is yours.
Good morning. I'm Juliet Sue, Corridor Manager in the Engineering Department. The item before you is a request for additional contract authorization for CMG, the team that provides staff augmentation for the Engineering Department. This item was presented to the Joint Capital Programs and Projects Committee meeting on May 22nd and recommended to present to the board, or to the boards. So this slide shows the engineering department organizational chart. In gray is the TCA engineering staff, and in orange or yellow is CMG. We follow the TCA's model of a small in-house staff and have only 3 full-time engineers. We then utilize CMG's contracted staff to augment our resources and deliver our projects. This model provides 2 great advantages. The first being that staff levels can be increased and decreased based on project workload. And the second, it gives TCA direct access to a broad range of expertise. And this model has proven to be very effective as we continue in successfully delivering our projects. This list shows a range of tasks that CMG performs as an extension of staff. But in summary, I just wanted to say that CMG provides support to help us navigate our projects through the Caltrans project delivery process to successful completion. The CMG contract was awarded in 2016 through competitive procurement, and we have just entered the 4th year of the contract. I'd like to walk you through the authorization request, focusing in on just the last 3 columns. The first shows what we're estimating our fiscal year 20 expenditures to be. For San Joaquin Hills, we are estimating $1.6 million. And moving to the next column, the good news is that we actually underspent in fiscal year 19 and have a remaining authorization of $500,000. Therefore, we are requesting only the difference, which is $1.1 million. For Foothill Eastern, as expected, the values are larger because we have larger projects that are currently under development. And we're estimating $12.8 million in fiscal year 20 expenditures. In fiscal year 19, we underspent and have remaining authorization of $9.5 million. And the difference then that we're requesting is $3.3 million. So at this time, staff is recommending authorization for $1.1 million for the San Joaquin Hills Transportation Corridor Agency and $3.3 million for the Foothill Eastern Transportation Corridor Agency. And that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for your presentation. Any questions by any board members? Director Marriott.
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. Can you provide a little detail on what appeared, if you could roll back a screen maybe, but what appeared to be $2 million?
For San Joaquin?
No, I apologize. Eastern Foothill, you had it right on the first rollback. I just want to take this in for 1 second. Can you give us a little bit of background? As I read that, it looks like everything you've looped into or lumped into item 3, the 2.1 million, is part of that grouping there. Can you clarify a little bit and with some rough ballparks what's being spent on the South County Traffic Relief piece itself?
Sure.
And for what? Or
Absolutely. So the for South County, so if you look again at the first column, that's the fiscal year 20 estimated expenditures, and then the last column is the authorization request. So for South County, we're what makes up that 10.8 million is about 8.3 million for South County shown there, and that's for project development in the next phase of that particular project.
So 85-ish% of the spending for that grouping of projects there is South County Traffic Relief.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other comments or discussions? All right, let's move on to San Joaquin Hills only. Do I have a motion to approve as stated?
So moved.
Second.
All right, it was moved and seconded by Director Munzing. All in favor from San Joaquin, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, on San Joaquin, it was approved unanimously. And on Foothill Eastern, do I have a motion to approve? It was moved by Vice Chair Chuck Puckett and seconded by Director Murphy. All in favor from Foothill Eastern, say aye.
Aye.
It was approved with Director Wagner recusing or abstaining from the vote.
Register no, please. Chair, if I could register no, Foothill Eastern.
You sure can.
Thank you.
Okay, so with 1 no and 1 abstention. Yes, very good. So noted. Thank you. All right. Now, with regard to the next items, items 19, 20, and 21, these items to be discussed jointly by San Joaquin Hills TCA and Foothill Eastern TCA boards, and then voted on as separate items. So, following those actions, items 22 and 23 will be discussed together by Foothill Eastern TCA board, and then voted on as separate items. Since I presume, Madam Clerk, we don't have any public comments on these?
No, we don't.
Very good. Director Wagner?
Thank you. I would like a separate discussion on items 21, 22, and 23, since I think they raise the same issue. I have no problems with 19, personally 19 or 20, and would move approval of those two.
Very good. Before we move on, Chairwoman Christina Shea will be providing a report out from the Joint Contracts Matrix Review Ad hoc regarding items 19 and 23.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is an update from our Joint Contracts Matrix Review Ad hoc Task Force. See if you could say that really fast. The members of the task force found that this review process these past 4 months to be very productive. We discussed in detail the breadth and scope and details of these contracts. The task force completed a review of the Strategic Planning Department Support Services contracts. The primary purpose of the review was to assess the specific contracts within the department, including critically reviewing the following aspects of each of these contracts: the scopes of work, the subcontractors, equivalent staff, full-time equivalent hours, FY budget 2019, FY 2020 proposed budgets. We reviewed key contractor personnel, basis of compensation, project controls, and opportunities for efficiency and consolidation. The task force determined, based on the overall work efforts and scopes of work completed during the FY19 and the anticipated workload for FY20, there was an opportunity to consolidate the number of contracts for the department. The task force also reviewed general project controls, including invoicing and contract payment procedures. As a result, the task force recommended the basis of compensation should be revised and implemented on some of the department contracts for FY20. The overall results of the task force recommendations are: 1, reduce the number of contracts from 9 currently signed for F19 to 5 for FY20. Reduce the value of the contracts from $3.1 million budget for FY19 to $1.2 million for FY20. Change the compensation basis of 3 of the contracts from monthly retainer-based contract to time and materials hourly contract with a not-to-exceed budget limit. Additionally, the task force, through the recommendation of the Joint Strategic Planning Committee, recommends all of these contracts to be re-procured through a competitive proposal process during F20. Again, we want to thank the board leadership for setting up this task force. Also, I personally would like to thank the members of the task force, which included our supervisor, Lisa Bartlett, who added quite a bit of good background and information to that committee, Director Cynthia Connors, Director Peggy Wong, Director Joseph Miller. I keep calling you Mueller, but it looks like Mueller, but I get this Miller. Still don't get it right. Director Mark Murphy, Director Chuck Puckett, and of course, Director Scott Voights, who was our vice chair of that committee. We all worked diligently to review these contracts and to come up with the effective recommendations that will move us into the next phase of work for this department. This was a strong collaborative effort, And the members, we've used that word before today, did we not? And the members of this task force provided the guidance, experience, and leadership that was needed to make these substantial recommendations before you. So I just wanted to give that update. Peggy Wong was going to give it, and she's, I believe, in DC, so I just thought I'd share that with everyone.
Thank you, Chairwoman Christina Shea. Now, I wanted to ask our Chief Strategy Officer, Mr. Mike Chesney, to provide us with a presentation.
Thank you, Chair Minigar. My name is Mike Chesney, Chief Strategy Officer for TCA. And as Chairwoman Shea recapped for you, the next 5 items before you, items number 19 through 23, are the contract renewals for various support services for the Strategic Planning Department. These contract renewals were presented and discussed at the May 9th, 2019 Joint Contracts Matrix Review Ad Hoc Task Force and recommended to forward these items to the board for approval. And they were also presented at the May 22nd, 2019 Joint Strategic Planning Committee, and the committee recommended these items to be brought forward to the board for approval. Again, as Chairwoman Shea stated, these are the reduced and consolidated contract renewals for fiscal year 20. The intent will be to work with these contractors during this coming fiscal year while we recompete these contracts for next fiscal year 21, per the recommendation of the Joint Strategic Planning Committee. The first 3 contracts are joint items, and these are listed here on the screen. The first is Aiken Gump, Strauss, Hauer, and Feld, and they are our federal legislative advocates in Washington, D.C.
Maybe we should stop for a second and do a technology check.
There's
a mute button on most phones that can satisfy that requirement. Otherwise, it starts to make me nervous that there's something we should worry about. So if we could, that'd be great. Thanks. As what looks like the only millennial here, can you help?
That is the funniest thing I've heard for days. But it's good to know you'll help us. Thank you so much. And we can all grab our canes at the front door.
Right after the meeting, right after the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Well taken, Director Murphy.
Okay, our next consultant listed is Kurt Pringle and Associates, and they are tasked with our long-range planning support services and specific strategic stakeholder outreach. And they have been key working with our Vision Planning Ad Hoc Committee in terms of how we set forth policy for long-term visioning for the agency. And the third consultant there under this joint renewal is Barrios and Communications Lab. They are our local community outreach in terms of getting out to the community, helping us meeting with residences and businesses as well as organizations, and helping us with presentations, getting our information out into the community, as well as providing staff augmentation to us and the communications department here at TCA, kind of the workhorse, if you will, of providing staffing when we need it to get through certain pushes. So with that, I can certainly answer any questions. I know that Director Wagner had one.
Those are for items 21, 22, and 23, unless you have
Well,
questions
21.
on.
We're on 21.
We're 19, we're on 19.
So,
okay, we have
We're
to do
taking
one
these
by
as a-
one.
You said we were taking these as a group, but I'll play it your way.
Discussions as a group.
All right, I'd like to discuss 21.
Okay, then please go ahead.
But I'll wait and discuss 21 later if you don't think we're on 21.
You can discuss it now, but then we're going to be voting separately and.
Understand.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. Yeah, I do have an issue with 21, and it's the same I will have with 22 and 23, and I won't necessarily repeat it there. It surprised me, shall we say, when I saw it. The original contract was for $450,000. We are now asked to approve amendment number 26, taking this contract up to $4.5 million. I've never seen 26 amendments to a contract and going 1,000% over the original contract. At some point, we ought call a halt and do an RFP. And I know now we're planning on doing it in 2020. But when I read this, all I could think of was the debacle at the Great Park in Irvine before before our chairman got on the council there, where a council would find friends and shovel them dollars and shovel them dollars and shovel them dollars until they had shoveled them somewhere between 200 million and $250 million with no public oversight, no RFPs, no RFQs, no understanding of how the scope of the agreement had changed and whether the person doing it, who had been doing it for a while and was a friend of everybody on the council and everybody on the board, was really still the best person to do it. 26 amendments, bringing this up 1,000%. That's not responsible on our part. And I would like to see us have some sort of a policy to call halt. You know, the one with Kurt Pringle and Associates, that's the Second Amendment. We got a taste of the work they could do. But 26 amendments? I even have a problem on the next two agenda items where it's amendments 8 and 9. At some point, we ought to take a look at our contracting policy and step back and say, you know, we don't want to go where the Irvine City Council went a decade ago and gave us that boondoggle of a great park that it took an enormous amount of effort to dig out of that boondoggle and get it up and running. And kudos especially to Mayor Shea for the work she's been doing for years to get that thing more functional. Let's not go there with this. I would urge us put this out for a bid and try. If Communications Lab gets it, great. We know what the scope of work is. We know what we're asking them to do. We think they can do it better than somebody else, but somebody else also deserves a shot. 26 amendments, a 1,000% increase. That's breathtaking.
Director Bartlett?
Thank you, Chair. So we had a really robust discussion at the committee level, and I know a number of these contracts were in place for a long time. But during that process, and they were set up for multi-year extensions. And so, I mean, I really raised a point with regard to, look, we're consolidating with our different vendors that we have out there. We need to have services provided for this next year. Let's go ahead and extend, but keep it to a year. And in the meantime, the scope on a number of these contracts is changing and will change beyond the next year. And then again, we had a number of contracts that were retainer, regardless of whether they work 2 hours a month or 300 hours a month. And I said, we've got to change those monthly retainers because we couldn't really track some of the retainers with scope of work that was performed. I said, we've got to change those to time and materials. They'll get paid on an hourly basis. So if they work 2 hours a month, they'll get paid 2 hours. If they work 20 hours a month, they'll get paid 20 hours. So we made a lot of substantive changes in addition to the scope changes. And I think we're in a good place right now to continue with the revised scope, reduce number of vendors for the next year, and then get everything re-procured. And that was another thing too. You know, we've got everything lined up for this year, paring down the vendors, paring down from retainer to hourly and, you know, time and materials, and then get everything out to bid on all of these vendors for the next year from 2020 and beyond. So I think we're in a good position now to go ahead and approve what we have today, but knowing that we've already made some substantive changes and we'll be making more changes, of course, with the re-procurement a year from now. But I think we have to move forward with a level of service. We can't have a vacuum where we have no service from the different vendors here. So I think it's important to have some continuity. And like I said, we've already made some substantial changes in just this year moving forward with these vendors. Thank you.
Director Heft is recognized.
Thank you, Chair. In looking at these numbers, if I can use this term, I would concur with Director Wagner in that I'm not that familiar how we come to $4.6 million, and I think it would be very helpful to understand some details in terms of what that consists of, how that breaks down. That's a very large contract, And my level of comfort, I think, would be helped extremely by understanding what goes into those numbers and why we're paying them.
Thank you. Director Bain?
So I have an echo Director Wagner and Director Heff's comments, and then just if I could decouple the discussion and talk to my San Joaquin colleagues. You know, a lot of the discussion in the staff report really is geared towards items for Foothill Eastern. And we're providing $100,000, I think, for a communications lab, and I'm not really sure what that work is for because we don't really have the projects in the upcoming year that they would need to be helping our communications department. So I would want to understand a lot more about what they're proposed to do because as it seems, we're just sort of supplementing the work that they're going to be doing for Foothill Eastern on the San Joaquin side. And then going back to item 19, I would just sort of echo those same sentiments for Aiken Gump. I think the staff report acknowledges we don't receive federal funds, especially not at San Joaquin. So other than NEPA, there's really no need to monitor what's happening federally unless you can identify some other issues. So I don't know if we can specify that we're just asking them to monitor NEPA issues and things like that as it relates to our projects. If that would save us any money. But then on 20, with Pringle and Associates, again, in the staff report, San Joaquin's asked to put $80,000 in a contract, and as I look at the staff report, those efforts, again, seem geared more towards Foothill Eastern projects and not San Joaquin projects. So I have, again, concerns about supplementing that budget for Foothill Eastern on the San Joaquin side. I yield back.
Thank you. Director Moore?
I have a question. I think that you bring up some very interesting points, Director Wagner. And my question is, if we do what you're suggesting, then how does that affect as we go forward?
Now, Director Wagner.
All right, through the chair, and a great question. I'm looking at what we've got on the screen in front of us with respect to this particular contract, and it's Orange County Elections and Local Initiatives and Monitoring. Well, there isn't any election coming up until March, so that would probably give us time to do an RFP, put it out, vet the potential vendors, and come back with a recommendation. I appreciate the work of the committee on this, and as my great colleague Director Bartlett said, we are looking in 2020 to going back out. I'm just saying, why kick that can down the road? Why not do it now? I go back to the screen, local community outreach coordination, coffees. Okay, we can do coffees pretty quickly, pretty inexpensively, and with pretty much any party planner. I don't have any idea, and maybe I should know what KTT means, and meetings. Again, what sort of meetings? Director Heff is right, the contract isn't here. I go to the notes in the agenda item, the second paragraph under notes. The FY20 scope will include work, provide a wide range of, that's not even English. There's a word or two missing. Here, where's the contract? Show me the scope of work. Proofread your summary reports if you want us to rely on these. So what happens if we don't approve this? I think we have the time. We certainly ought to take it to think this particular aspect of the project through, do an RFP. We've already sunk hundreds and more than $1 million into this, when more than $3 million into this, when what was originally bid was less than $500,000. At some point we got to call a halt.
Director Marriott?
Thank you. So a question and actually a couple of questions, comment. There have really been two explosions in costs. One was a few years ago, the explosion in consulting costs in general, and then this microburst here that takes it up roughly 1,000%, according to my colleague, and probably in that neighborhood, and it is a little bit breathtaking. So much of it is driven by the South County traffic relief effort. And we do appreciate the subsidy, Board Member Dane. So I hope this question is germane enough to the topic. I'm curious that the route that has been included in the mix, which isn't particularly offensive to San Clemente or San Juan Capistrano, is that formally in this mix of consideration now? Can I get an update on that? Because I'm trying to put the scope of this expense I'm trying to wrap my head around, you know, the dollars and the need and the current need. And I view that opportunity for compromise as the only legitimate route being proposed without the 5 inclusion. So I'm just curious if where that stands, just as a level set for myself in evaluating some of this.
So
CEO Mike Raymond?
Sure, I'll take that one. Yes, it's in the mix. It's being considered. The formal introduction will be part of the initiation of the PAED phase at the public scoping meeting, where that's going to be identified as a new alternative and additional information. So yeah, it's as far as we're concerned, we're fully engaged on that, and it is included in the effort that's, you know, represented in discussions today.
If I may, through the chair, is it bifurcated
Yes.
from the 5? work?
Yes.
Couple other questions on the, thank you. Couple other questions on the contracts up on the screen. They can come, so we spend roughly 300,000 or 400,000 to monitor federal legislation.
Correct. And they also provide some guidance in terms of environmental streamlining. They are the folks that help us to provide language in legislation that gets proposed. And also they do help, this helps to answer some of Director Bain's questions. Agency-wide, they are helping us on other certain class action lawsuits that we have. They're assisting our NOSSMN team on that as well. So that's why we have some budget in the San Joaquin agency.
Just for everybody's understanding on the communication, the community meetings, it's a full-time campaign. I mean, in San Juan Capistrano, they have a representative at Friday morning casual coffee chats, whether the TCA is on the agenda or not. And I think they do the same in other communities. It's a full-time campaign. I don't think it's legitimately spent. I would favor getting more competitive with the process and taking our chances on our ability to handle the inflow of work on a reactive basis until we're there. Thank you.
Thanks. I just, maybe some clarification, because there's been some questions raised that I don't think we've had an opportunity to hear the answers to. But just to make sure we're focused in monies wise, how much of the current NTE value has already been expended by the agency to Communications Lab?
Let's see, they're for this current fiscal year, Director?
Well, no, you're showing an NTE value, the original, and then current. I just want to clarify that the current NTE value has already been expended?
Yes.
So in reality, today's question is whether or not to approve $360,000 contract for this coming year, which are not to exceeds where activities would come back for approval over certain amounts. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, clarification. I understand and I agree philosophically with not being a big fan of 26 amendments and the rest. But I think part of the discussion, and I know part of the discussion with the ad hocs we had, was how much to go after this year in RFPs and how much to look at in 2020. And this was one of the contracts, given the size as well as the services delivered, that it was thought best to put on the 2020 RFP round versus this round. These are NTEs, and in the grand scope of things, it's about an 8% increase to the expenditures. Love to go back and have this discussion a couple of years ago before there were when there were larger amounts of money on this. But at this point, I agree that we need to go to RFP. It's fine to look at when that's appropriate to do, but I just want to make sure we're all comparing apples to apples in terms of what's on the docket for today. So I'm okay following what we voted for in the committee, which is to definitely RFP this in 20 and approve these as NTEs to move forward on today from my perspective.
Thank you, Director Murphy. Mr. Chesney, I have a couple of questions for you. Could you clarify, I've heard 1.2 million that is before us to approve at this juncture versus I've heard $4 million. I need clarification on that first.
So for fiscal year 19, we had 9 total contracts that were signed for a total of 3.1 million. And through the committee's recommendations, we have consolidated and eliminated some of the contracts, now down to 5. These are the first 3. And the total of those 5 is 1.4 million.
So it's 1.4 million.
Correct.
My second question is, could you decode KTTT?
Yes. I apologize for that. Those are our kitchen table traffic talks. And those are part of the outreach efforts that Communications Lab. So, and those are invitations to residences who hold these talks in their homes. We go in there and provide information on our initiatives, specifically for the South Project. And they invite other residences. It's usually with homeowner association officers and such. And, you know, they could be as formal as in the living room, or we just sit around a table and talk to them and show them what we're doing and some of the information that we like to get out there. I'd like to answer a couple questions, if I may, that Director Bain had. And one was for ComLabs, the San Joaquin allocation. And as I mentioned, staff augmentation, part of the contract for fiscal year 20 will be to provide staff augmentation to the communications group. And so that's why we allocated that budget to the San Joaquin agency, because they will be working on assignments through the communications group, whether they're press releases or whatnot, that'll cross over both agencies. And finally, the question that Director Bain had about Kurt Pringle Associates on the San Joaquin side, again, that's a long-range planning that encompasses both agencies. Kurt Pringle Associates have been really key for us in working with our long-range, our vision planning committee, and helping to craft policy and to understand where we want to be, you know, long range, and that's looking at 20 years down the line. So those costs cross over to both agencies.
Director Bain is recognized.
Thank you. Just a follow-up, you said that the Aiken Gump contract, and I'm looking at it, contract number K000655, that was for legal services or for, because it was, in the staff report couched as legislative advocacy services. So is that an engagement agreement for legal services or advocacy services or both?
It encompasses everything. And so our legal counsel is an Osman, but they do provide assistance at times on certain class action lawsuits.
Okay, and those class actions are the ones that pertain to San Joaquin?
Both agencies.
Okay. Was there an allocation that was done between the agencies in that regard, or how did we come up with that number then?
It's pretty much historically what we've been running into over the last few years in terms of how they've been allocated. Predominantly, it's on the Foothill side because of the information that we're getting out there on the projects.
Director Janine Heft is recognized.
Thank you, Chairman Nagar. To piggyback on what Director Murphy said earlier, so I'm clear and all of us are clear here, in looking at these contracts, a certain amount of money, a large amount of money has already been spent, has already been allocated, has already been designated within the existing contracts. If we were to make a decision today, to go ahead and either individually or all together approve these contracts, that would just be for the amounts going forward. If we were to make a decision today to not approve them and reject one or all, would that possibly, and maybe I'd be speaking to you, Mr. Chesney, constitute a major train wreck because we're kind of changing horses in midstream and maybe not the best timing to do something like that, but wait for when we would go out for an RFP?
So the reason why we wanted to renew these for fiscal year 20, because going through a re-procurement process takes time. We would have to probably have anywhere from 3 to 5 months to have a procurement going through the proposal and interview process. And so that's why we're doing this. If we were to not approve some of these contracts, I'd have to regroup and I'd have to understand what the impacts would be. Certainly some of the staff augmentation efforts, if those weren't renewed, would impact us.
I guess to follow up, what, on a scale of 1 to 10, what kind of level of impact are we talking about? Because it seems like the horse is already out of the barn by virtue of what's already been voted on and what is already in place right now. in other words, I don't know if this is just the right time. I understand the points that are being made, but now I'm just thinking it's kind of too late.
It would be difficult for us. I'll say a 9, Director, and based on the discussions we had through the various committees, it felt like the right way to go in terms of, okay, let's get through this fiscal year, but do a complete re-procurement of all our contracts and setting up on-call benches with all of them.
With these contracts in place, if we would vote not to extend the additional money, looking at my colleague Don Wagner's earlier comments about 26 amendments, what would that do in terms of fiscal impact, just overall impact to where we are now, if we were just to say, nope, you've had enough, and this is where we're staying with the current contract and the amounts that have been agreed upon previously?
That specific contract is key for us, I'll say, because they are our community outreach consultant, and more importantly, the staff augmentation that I've mentioned. They've been lockstep with us in terms of what we do, strong historical and continuity with the staff. They have a very good understanding of what we do and the messaging and the information that we're trying to get out there and countering some of the misinformation that's out there. And so they help us a lot, especially with the presentations and outreach to the business and community out in the region.
Thank you.
Director Crane?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I wasn't on that committee, as you can tell, because my name wasn't mentioned, but it sounded like over a third of the members of this board, these two boards, were on that committee. And it sounded like they did a lot of questioning, and they came up with the solution that we should support these. I would like to know who the 9 consultants were and who the extra 2 are. That would have been nice to have this here. But forget the 9, we don't have time, but could you tell us who the other 2, because we have 3, and you said there are 5 that are moving forward.
Right. So we're moving forward with a total of 5.
Right.
We are not renewing the Venture Strategic contract. We are not renewing the Packard Government Affairs contract.
Okay, just tell me who you are renewing.
We are
the 2
renewing.
extra.
Sorry. So the other 2 would be Richard Katz and Latimer Partners, which is Tom Soto.
Okay, and that's fine. And it seems to me that there is quite a savings in the amount that we're spending this year. And I agree, it's to change horses in the middle of the stream seems to be counterproductive. So these people in this committee worked long hours, it sounds like, and they came to a sensible conclusion, not a retainer, time and material, and then going out next year for an RFP, because you can't just cut the horse in the middle of the stream, as it was mentioned, and expect things to just flow through. And I've worked with all of these companies. I've been here in this board for a long time, so I know Aiken Gump. They do a great job. I've known Kurt Pringle and Aria Barrios for a number of years. And apparently the committee said they're doing a great job. We're getting rid of 4. We're scaling it down to 5. We're saving the agency a lot of money, even though there were 26 amendments. It seemed I will be supporting this because I think the people who spoke at that committee did a great job. They said, well, I'm not going to repeat what I just said, but I think that they're doing a great job. And I hope that the rest of the members of this board support this.
Thank you. Director Beal?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I share Director Wagner's concern when you look at a situation where you have a contract with 20-plus amendments. In fact, I would venture to say every director sitting up here, it makes you stop and think. And when he says we need to call a halt at some point, I think we all probably agree. The question is today the day to call a halt to it? And as we've already heard from our staff's recommendation and the committee's recommendation after having studied all of this really carefully, the answer to that is no, we shouldn't do it today. We're going to do it next year when these are put out to bid. And so to that extent, I agree with the comments that were originally made by Director Bartlett, that we can't put TCA today in a position of not having service of this type. We can't have that kind of vacuum. In my opinion, we have at TCA very important work to complete right now going forward. And so I believe we need to stay the course. We should take no action to stop now or to limit, hinder, delay the TCA's ability to complete its mission in the planning and community outreach that we're doing. I believe we have been getting good value from this existing team of consultants. I would expect we're going to get another year of good value from these consultants. If we were to put it out to bid right now, I don't think we have any reason to believe that we're going to, from those bids, receive substantial cost savings for the same scope of work that we're seeking to do right now. And so for that reason, I would urge everyone to support the staff and committee recommendation.
Thank you. Director Wagner, back to you.
Yeah, just briefly, because I've made most of my points, but I'm hearing some things that don't frankly make a whole lot of sense to me. We can't change horses in the middle of the stream. That assumes that next year when we get these RFPs out, we will have crossed that stream. If y'all think we're going to get this project approved by San Clemente in the next couple of months and we'll be through that stream next year, you're all smoking the good stuff. We aren't. We're going to have the exact same argument this time next year. Gosh, it's so important, and they've been with us so long, we need to do Amendment 27 or something like that. Look, at some point, you have to say stop. Director Beal is right. What's the point? Well, look, when Irvine dumped $250 million into the Great Park, they didn't do it in one contract, in one fell swoop. They did it by bleeding the taxpayers time and time and time again with somebody who says, well, you know, it's not really 250 million, it's only $1 million. Well, you do that enough times with enough contractors and suddenly you're up to 250 million. No, we're not approving a $4.5 million contract here. We are just bringing the total up to $4.5 million after bidding a narrow scope of a project that was 1/10 of that amount. When do we stop? Now is never a good time to stop. I frankly, it boggles the mind that staff could say to us, the wheels fall off this organization, that if we don't approve Barrios, and it's Ariana, not Aria, Barrios, your good friend, Director Crane, if we stop now, the wheels fall off and it's a 9 out of a 10 on the Richter scale. If we stop on this one contract, which is the only one I'm complaining about, 26 amendments, and even if it does take 4 to 5 months, as we're told, we still have 4 to 5 months before the March election and any initiatives, and don't think there are any out there right now, but they may come along. We still have 4 to 5 months to do coffees and meet at kitchen tables for homeowners association folks. We just approved earlier today a multi-$100,000 contract for a communications consultant. Seems to me that's sort of redundant with what we're trying to do here with the Barrios Communications Lab. I just see us going Great Park direction, and I don't want us to have to answer somewhere down the road, how come you kept shoveling dollars to your friends without going out for an RFP? And by the way, if we go out for an RFP, I have no doubt in my mind that the Barrios and Communications Lab response will be outstanding, and they very well may get it. We owe it to them, we owe it to the taxpayers, we owe it to those who put us here to make sure we don't make the mistakes that Christina Shea and to a large extent, and I, to a smaller extent, fought in the city of Irvine and wasted $250 million there.
Thank you. Director Marriott?
Thank you.
Okay, I beg your pardon. Our CEO, Mike Kramer, wanted to chime in.
I just wanted to clarify that changing horses in midstream. What we're asking for is the ability to properly go through an RFP process without a gap. It's not midstream of all of the work that we're trying to do. We will definitely be able to, through that RFP process, get qualified firms in here to do that. You know, maybe even, you know, obviously these firms will recompete for the work as well. So that's the concern. It's not that we're going to be back here a year from now saying we still need them because we're not through with a project or something. It's really only asking for the ability to properly go through an RFP process. The other thing is once we go through the RFP process, we're going to bring those contracts to the board for approval, and that's going to be the contracts that we use. So by the time we get to next year, we won't be bringing the same contract back to you. We'll have been through that process.
And I'm saying start that process, an orderly process now.
And we agree, and that's the direction we got from the
You're not starting it now, you're re-upping and we're going on. Let's start it now.
We are starting the process to reprocure this summer. We'll put all these RFPs. So we're not going to wait and time it so that we get through another year's worth. We're going to start immediately the reprocurement process for these contracts.
But won't that be the next year?
It's 11:35. In the interest of time, Director Marriott.
Thank you. It did spark a question of staff. Can you just clarify? Because I've been under the impression this is a year or nothing deal, and we're a board. We have the flexibility to amend the time frame any way we see fit. I mean, can you just clarify the time frame of expectation?
Yeah, I would ask you not to modify the timeframes, but it is our intent to issue and get in place the new contracts beginning right away.
So time frame
So
to reprocure RFP and gain subcommittee and board approval would be roughly how many months?
5 months minimum, I
So
would
theoretically,
say.
we could prorate all these dollars and factor it.
And I would ask you not to do that. There's a lot going on. I want the flexibility.
I don't
and
mean
also-
prorate in thinking it through. A board member can kind of prorate that in their head, flesh it out as a monthly, and figure, okay, this is my risk while this process goes on. I'm not talking about mending the vote. I'm talking about just how someone evaluates it.
Correct. Fair enough. And we'll prioritize the procurements, and, you know, we have resources in our contracts department aren't unlimited, so the schedule of how these get done, I don't want to commit to that today, but I just wanted to address the question that you're not going to have the same contract for Amendment 26 next June that we're going to be asked 27. Thank you.
Hard to keep count.
Okay.
27
And
is
for
my
my
lucky
point, I
number,
know-
though.
And for my point, I know 5 months is an estimate, but that wasn't my original comment, just to proceed briefly. So I want to be clear that the work of the subcommittee is something we've been asking for, and we appreciate the fact that they put so much work in, staff as well. I also want to say, you know, the folks that have been doing this work, I mean, Barrios was just clarifying some of the other meetings, the kitchen table stuff that they've done that has been scheduled and advertised. They do a very nice job. I've overlapped at several of those meetings with them. They're very good at the visuals and so forth. They're very good in working with the community. You know, Kurt Pringle from Pringle Associates has educated and clarified some very complex issues for me. Aiken Gump, I know they did an overview. I mean, they're all good people. I've always maintained that they've been given a very impossible task, getting a freeway connected to another freeway when there's no way to do that. Period. That's your train wreck. And for my colleague Heft, we're already in the train wreck. The train is partially wrecked. I've been on it for 2.5 years now, and there's, you know, and some of this is just kind of a continuation. But when you've spent this many millions and you still have 2 routes under technical consideration that provide 1% relief and don't provide redundancy, I mean, that's about as train wreck as it gets from a business logic point of view. So I submit that we have been asking these folks, who are probably good folks and top notch, to do something impossible. And usually it's either the task or the talent when we don't seem to be getting to fruition. I would ask, we brought Dave in-house. Barbara, I presume, yeah, it's public record, you can share it if you want, but I'm sure she's well paid to monitor. What is when we look, and I know it's a separate item and might come back up, but when we look at Aiken Gump, what is, on the federal side, what is ominous for our agency? Because if you're paying $40,000 a month to monitor and be ready and stay on your toes, that almost implies that there's something ominous out there as it regards toll roads or tolling capacity. Is there something in that original legislative agenda that is ominous for, or particularly concerning for us, or is it just regarding the environmental stuff?
Currently, it is specifically towards the South Project, the environmental efforts that we're going to be moving into. And no secret that there are certain congressional representatives there that have sent in letters to us. And so they're working very hard to try to mitigate that, working with their staff as well.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman?
Director Bartlett, and then Director Kelly, and then Director Foley.
Okay, well, we had a robust discussion at committee level and really reined in the term and the pricing going from 3 million down to 1.2. And I think we need to have some continuity in service. But I appreciate very much all of the comments from our colleagues up here, you know, with Supervisor Wagner pointing out the 26th Amendment. I know that sounds a bit alarming. You think, well, how could there be 26 amendments in a contract? We've had turnover in TCA staff, and as we've had turnover, rather than increase government, we've decided to look at it from a proactive approach to how do we get the services that we need. Sometimes they're not full-time. We can change things from a staffing perspective, and that's why we utilize the Barrios and Communications Lab for staff augmentation rather than hiring more employees and putting them on our payroll with pensions, et cetera. So it was kind of a prudent approach to take from a staffing perspective. But I think by reining in the number of contractors and vendors and lobbyists down to the 5 we have with the 1-year term, I think that gives us the opportunity now to figure out what scope do we want on a moving forward basis, get those RFPs out there on the street right away, get that process started so that a year from now, we may have 3 contracts, we may have 4 contracts, we don't know. But at least we're going to be able to match up what we need for the long term with the pricing that we have in place. And with the time and materials, these are all up to dollar amounts. So even though we've got the 5 firms, with the exception of Aiken Gump, which is a retainer, the others are time and materials, so they're hourly rates. And so the amounts that we have in those contracts for the year, if they do 2 hours a month, they charge us for 2 hours. If they put in 10 hours, we get charged for 10 hours. So it's not as though we're going to get charged the full amount that's represented in each of those contracts. And that was a huge paradigm shift for the agency. And the committee was really firm on that. Look, we need to go out to RFP. We're going to give a 1-year timeline. We're going to go from retainers on all these contracts to an hourly with time and materials. And we're going to figure out the scope of what we need for the long term and for the future. So I think we're in a good position now. Like we've gone from 9 to 5 vendors. We've got great terms, and I think the up to on the pricing makes sense. So let's just continue through this process and be very engaged as directors on a moving forward basis to make sure we've got the right firms, the right people, the right things in place, scope of work, and dollar amounts moving forward for the future. But we don't have any gap in service. Because particularly with the Communications Lab contract, if we have a gap in service, I don't want to be in a position with the agency now where we have to go out and hire folks and put them on our payroll with pensions, et cetera. That's why the staff augmentation really does make sense. It's a much more cost-effective way to go, and we pay for the time that we utilize with all of the vendors, essentially. Thank you.
Director Trish Kelly.
Yes, thank you. And I do agree with Director Bartlett and the comments. And I think one thing that's important for us to know is one reason we have these committees is so that they can really comb through and vet these issues. And I can see that the committee did a lot of work on this and really came to us with a product that I can fully support. I think that bringing down from 9 contracts to 5 and from 3.1 million to 1.4 million, I think this is significant. I think it's significant that we now have time and materials as opposed to retainer, with the exception of the Aiken Gump. But I think one thing that's really key for us to keep in mind too, and many of us do this in our cities, is that by contracting out and by hiring consultants, we can save a great deal on staffing. And I don't think we have a dollar amount on what that savings is, but we can be sure that it's a lot more. The savings would be a lot is greater than what the costs would be in staffing up to what would be needed to provide all these services. And then the RFP process does take time. These procurement processes do take time, and I'm very comfortable in going out to bid again, but also in that timeline of 2020. I think that a lot of thought was put into that as well. And we really do need to have the continuity going forward. We don't want to have a gap. We have history right now as well as continuity. I've worked with several of these consultants as well, and I'm confident in the work they do. And so I do support the staff recommendations here, and as soon as we're ready to vote, I'm ready to vote.
Director Foley?
Thank you, and I too appreciate all the good work of the committee. I think that it's clear there's been a lot of diving into the issues. So I wanted to get back to Director Bain's questions because we got sort of sidetracked onto this issue, and we haven't really answered Director Bain's questions with regard to why the allocation to the San Joaquin Hills corridor of some of these contracts when they don't have projects there. I didn't hear an answer to that unless I missed it.
Director Foley, I can answer that. For Communications Lab, the allocation of $100,000 for the San Joaquin Hills corridor, that's predominantly the staff augmentation and to help with our communications department as well at the agency on all agency-wide efforts, and that will cross into the San Joaquin agency.
Okay.
For Kurt Pringle and Associates, it's $80,000 allocated to San Joaquin, and that's for the long-range planning, working with our vision planning ad hoc that we have, and that's consistent from what we've done last year in terms of agency-wide initiatives and policy that we're setting. And then for Aiken, the $90,000 was allocated to the San Joaquin corridor, and that's for agency-wide issues that we're dealing with on legislative side, as well as some of the class action support that we're getting from them that covers both agencies, including San Joaquin.
Okay, thank you. I had one other question and a follow-up. Director Wagner keeps saying that the election is in November, or I'm sorry, March. But my understanding is there is at least 2 elections in November here in Orange County. Am I incorrect? Right? So I don't know if this year. Yeah, because there's some special elections this year in November. I don't know if they do or not, but I think you're out of order. And then I just wanted to address, because I do feel like this board is very professional in the way everyone works together and respects each other's service. And I am concerned about comments that say, friends, and I don't know I'm not friends with any of these vendors. Our city hasn't ever even hired any of these vendors. So I am concerned about that kind of accusation. And so I think that I would hope that we would all be more respectful.
Thank you. Director Janine Heft.
Yes, thank you, Chair. In the privilege that we get as directors to read through these tomes, to prepare for our meetings every month, in case I missed it or unless I missed it, I think it would be very helpful to maybe have an overview when we're discussing something as important as, extending and voting on very large contracts, that affect the integrity and, just overall health of our organization, to have maybe some sort of like an overview report that the committees discussed, so we can have kind of like an idea of how things went, so we know what to understand, so we don't have all this discussion trying to understand what went on.
Thank you. Chairwoman Christina Shea.
Yes, thank you. I think that's a good point. I think what we may do, we used to do this before, is we would have the chairs of the committees give reports, but maybe we could, after committees, we could get, make sure we have our minutes and we could put them in everyone's packets. So there is that communication. I think that's a very good way to do it. I think it would save time. I totally understand the concern of our Director Wagner. We went through just hell at the city for a lot of waste and time.
City of Irvine.
Yes, City of Irvine, over the years with certain folks that were running that organization. But I even had to sue the city, and I won in appellate court, but because of some of the shenanigans that was going on. But I would say that I can't quite equate that to what we're doing here. I would say that becoming the new chair and working with Chair Fred Minigar, we really talked about the issue of this very aggressive communication program we've had in the past. It's been very expensive. It became, I believe, very contentious. We participated in a lot of back and forth bickering and so on, and not that we were bickering, but trying to defend something that probably was best to keep quiet to some degree. I think there was a point that we needed to defend the agency, but we have been of the mind, as we've taken over leadership, that we want to move into the CEQA process. We want to be running this agency like a transportation agency and not be so going forward with so much communication and aggressiveness. And we feel that some of these contracts that were in place needed to be taken out. They need to be removed, and now we're moving into a new direction. So I'd have to compliment this committee. I think, honestly, Director Wagner, your sense of what you see is exactly what we were seeing and what we have tried to resolve. We have taken it very seriously with this committee. We probably will continue that, I would hope, moving forward, looking over the procurement process and whatnot. But we also don't want to create a lot of disruption, and so sometimes it's important to, in government, as we all know, to be a little bit more conservative rather than quite so provocative in how we would address our actions. So I totally understand your point of view. I do think that we did, through this committee, try to tackle a lot of those concerns. But I do feel that approving these contracts are very important to move forward, and then we will start the procurement process. And I think that's a very thoughtful, reasonable way to be looking at it. And today, these contracts are only 1.2. We're saving 1.4. We're saving almost $1.5 million by the efforts we put forth in our committee. And I just think that has been a good process, and I would like us to support this today.
Director Munzing?
Yeah, being that we've already pretty much cleared that this is a not to exceed contract, and I think with the CEO's comments of the fact that we can fairly expeditiously begin the process of the RFP, I would like to, if I'm able to, from San Joaquin, I would like to move items 19, 20, and 21.
Second.
Before we proceed, just one quick, Director Kring, and then we're going to get down to. It's on the floor. It's moving.
30 seconds. Well, Director Foley, I'm sorry that you were offended that I called some people friends.
No. I was referring to Director Wagner. I apologize.
Oh, okay.
You
Well,
called
then-
somebody your friend.
Oh, because I've known these consultants for many, 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 many years and served with Kurt Pringle for 4 years on council. So I do consider them very long associates, and I would consider them friends.
Very good. If there are no other comments, it's 5 to 12, and we've got quite a few items to discuss. Okay, Director Chafee.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to start by thanking Director Wagner for getting KTTT defined. I was curious about that myself, but I was afraid to show my ignorance. So if I may use the word of the day, I think staff is going to work concurrently to get an RFP out here. And to me, the key with an RFP is not the duration or anything like that, but the scoping. Things have changed. What should go in it? And I think that needs to be carefully thought out. And so then maybe we need 5 contracts, maybe we need 3. The services may be quite different than what we've been talking about in the past. So I really think it takes a good look at the scope of what we're asking for.
Thank you. Now, Director Munzing, your motion is on the floor for San Joaquin Hills only.
Call to invite the question so we can do 21 seconds.
Okay,
I'd like to do each separately if we could.
sure.
19, 20, and 21.
That's my plan. For item number 19, San Joaquin Hills only, it was moved by Director Munzing.
I believe the way that the motion went, it was all three, so we do need to separate, don't we?
We are separating it. Okay. We're starting the new motion.
Motion on 19.
19. Separate.
Big word.
19.
I move item 19.
Any second? It was seconded by Director Wagner. All in favor from San Joaquin, say aye.
Aye.
It was moved unanimously. Am I right?
Register no, please.
No for Director Marriott and no Director Moore. All right.
I'd like to move item 20.
Okay.
Second.
No.
we got Foothill
19
Eastern on
for
19.
Foothill Eastern
So moved.
only. Okay, it was moved by Director Wagner. Seconded by Director Scott Boyds. All in favor from Foothill Eastern, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone?
Register no, please.
Registering no. Director Marriott, no.
I'd like to move item 20 for San Joaquin.
Okay. It was moved for San Joaquin, item number 20, moved by Director Munzing, seconded by Director Wagner. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone,
Opposition?
anyone opposing item 20, Director Bain,
No, please.
Director Moore, and Director Marriott? We got them, Madam Clerk? Okay. Now, item 20, Foothill Eastern only. It was moved by Director Murphy, seconded by Director Kring. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposing?
No.
No by Director Marriott.
Yes. No, correct.
Very good.
Yes, no.
Submissive, dominant.
All right.
I'd like to move item 21 for San Joaquin.
Okay, it was moved and approved. Now, we're getting to item 21, San Joaquin Hills only. It was moved by Director Munzing, seconded by Director Trish Kelly. All in favor from San Joaquin, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposing? Director Wagner, Director Moore,
No.
and Director Marriott.
Oh, and Director Bain.
And Director Bain, I beg your pardon. So 4 noes. Now, for item 21, Foothill Eastern only, do I have a motion?
Second.
It was moved by Director Kring, seconded by Director Bartlett. All in favor from Foothill Eastern only, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposing item 21 from Foothill Eastern, Director Wagner and Director Marriott? Very good. Moving on to item number 22. All right, now, these 2 items, 22 and 23, will be discussed together by Foothill Eastern only. At this juncture, members of San Joaquin Hills Transportation Corridor Agency are excused. If they desire to leave the chamber, they can leave, and only Foothill Eastern members. Item 22, Mr. Mike Chesney, the floor is yours.
Correct, thank you. So the 2 additional contracts are Foothill Eastern annual contracts only. First one is Latimer Partners. The principal is Tom Soto. You see up there, it's stakeholder support services, primarily with the state resource agencies and also the Latino outreach, Latino caucus specifically, and labor outreach for support. And Richard Katz Consulting is the last contract renewal there for stakeholder support services, primarily for Environmental Coalition liaison with the Save San Onofre Coalition and the other state agencies that you see there, the Coastal Commission and SCAG. An example of the help that they provided was for the strong opposition that we were able to garner on AB 1273 was an example of some of the help that they did for us. So with that, I'll take questions.
Any questions from anyone?
I'll move the, second.
Move the item.
Okay, it was moved by Director Miller and seconded by Director Krang. All in favor from Foothill Eastern, say aye.
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 Anyone opposing? Registered no, Director Marriott. Moving on to item number 23.
Correct.
You,
Yeah, it's up there.
so you're gonna go over the presentation?
Oh, I did that back here.
Okay, then.
Direct-
Okay,
yes.
do I have a motion on item 23? Okay, then it was moved and approved. All right, now we're getting to item number 24.
Director, Chair Menninger, we need a separate vote for this one.
24 is only Foothill Eastern.
Correct. The last vote was for this item, which is 22, and that was for Latimer. This vote now,
Oh,
which
you
we have
wanna-
not taken, is for item 23,
Got it.
and that's Richard Katz.
Okay, got it. Okay, for item 23, do I have a motion? It was moved by Director Krang and seconded by Director Scott Voigt. All in favor from Foothill Eastern, say aye.
Aye.
It was moved, and
No.
the only no is from Director Marriott. Very good. He's my great friend from the great city of San Juan Capistrano.
Thank you, Fred.
All right, item number 24. Ms. Amy Potter, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. And so this is for the Foothill Eastern Term Rate Bond remarketing. And so just a real quick background here on these bonds. So here you see our complete Foothill Eastern debt structure of our interest and principal payments. And in 2013, when we refinanced the debt, we issued 3 subseries of term rate bonds at $125 million each. And the principal of those bonds matures out, you see in the late years there, 50 through 53. The first tranche was done in 2017. And essentially what a term rate bond is that even though the principal was set to mature out in the end of the debt structure, the interest was only set for a short term. So the first one was 5 years. The one that we're working with now is 7 years. And then there's one more tranche that would be at the 10-year point. And so the first date that we can call these bonds and reset that interest is July 15th. And it has to be done no later than January 15th. And so just like we had with the first tranche, we have an opportunity here with very low long-term interest rates to lock in those rates out to the final maturities. And by doing so, in addition to taking advantage of those lower rates and lowering our payments, we also eliminate interest risk in the future of interest rates rising when we go out to remarket them again, and also eliminating the associated costs that we incur each time that we remarket these bonds. And so what we're looking at here is that we have these bonds that were set at 5% for the initial term. And on the first tranche, we were able to lock in a rate of 3.95% in 2017. And that saved us $1.3 million in interest every year all the way through the final maturity. With these bonds, if the market cooperates, we're looking at an interest rate between 3.5% and 4%. And so that would translate into an additional savings of $1.4 million in interest every year throughout the final maturity of these bonds. So as the director of the the chair of the finance committee had mentioned in his opening remarks earlier, the committee asked us to also look at paying off these bonds. And so as discussed earlier, really what we brought back to the committee is that we have this opportunity now to lock in a historically low interest rate on these bonds between 3.5% and 4%. And we have other bonds that are outstanding that are at a higher interest rate. And the next one that becomes callable would be the third subseries of these bonds that are currently at 5.5%. Those become callable in July of 2022. And then we have bonds that are at an even higher rate that range between 5 and 6.5% that become callable in January of 2024. And so to answer your question, Director Marriott, what we were talking about earlier is the difference, so the gross interest, the difference between a 6% interest rate and a 3.75% interest rate over that 34-year period. I could back it off a couple years. I noticed when when you brought up the question, which would bring it down to about 90 million, but that's gross interest. So what I'm showing here on the screen is the present value calculation, and the present value calculation that we did was on 25 million. So I could roughly times that by 5 for 125 million, which was our comparison, and showing a present value savings that you see there accordingly. So the committee came to the conclusion that since the long-term borrowing rates are at near all-time lows, and whereas the shorter rates, which we invest our cash at, are somewhat higher than average, it's better for us to hold on to our cash and use them towards these more expensive bonds that we have that will become callable in the next 3 to 5 years. So with that, we've already been working on this process, and you have draft documents in your package today. So we've already had some briefings. We provided you with the draft documents. We are working with the rating agencies right now. We will continue to work with them. And then assuming that the market stays as good as it is today, we would expect to price these bonds on July 17th and close the transaction on July 18th. And so before you today, we have the documents in the package, but also a contract amendment with PFM for $75,000. But what I'm showing you here are all of those, the dollars essentially that go into the remarketing of these bonds. And so we already have an agreement with the bankers who are the remarketing agents. And we're estimating that those fees are $670,000. Bond counsel and disclosure counsel of $120,000, our general counsel of $20,000, rating agency fees of approximately $30,000, and trustee fees of $7,000. And all of these funds were in the budget that you approved earlier today. And so with that, oh, and there is one thing I would like to mention with regard to the documents. So we did receive a call yesterday from OCTA asking us to add some language to the document, and the section that they were referring to is the capital section of the remarketing disclosure statement, essentially. And what that section is intended to do is give potential investors an understanding of projects that we're working on and additional bonds that we may issue and or using of our unrestricted cash. And so I think it's better when we're disclosing that to be more conservative, meaning that we included what we think is probably the earliest date for the 24191 project in there, because that's more conservative to let them know that we could potentially issue debt or use cash at that earlier date. What we agreed to do in our discussion with OCTA is just add some language that we are coordinating with OCTA and RCTC on an operating agreement, and with Caltrans and those other agencies just on the process itself. And so with that before you today, the recommendation is to approve the resolution that allows us basically to issue these bonds and the documents, and also to authorize the CEO to execute a contract amendment with Public Financial Management, our financial advisor, in the amount of $75,000. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much for your comprehensive report. Discussions now.
I'll move the item.
Oh,
Okay.
oh, you wanted
I was
to
just gonna move the item.
discussions?
Comment, question?
Please.
All of the above. Thank you for the presentation. So a couple of clarifying things. Because I think part of the problem, and I really think it's important that we think about this in setting future agendas. I feel like, and I wasn't in the subcommittee meeting, but I think we're putting dollars and cents before our philosophy about debt. So we're looking at a refi opportunity to evaluate the debt picture instead of looking at the big picture, debt picture, and trying to figure out our philosophy about what kind of debt we should be carrying. So when you look at something like this, it sounds good to say we can save on interest, but just to clarify, we got $125 million in cash that we could use to pay off this tranche shortly. All else being equal, that's fully callable. We could retire that issue, right? if we remarket it, we have all the flexibility in the world in terms of the debt we replace it with, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So that's the same with the other two tranches as well.
Well, yes, correct.
Okay. So over the next, if we wait out the second issue, 2 years, 3 years, and we're picking up about 80 to 125 basis points return on our cash. We start behind the 8 ball by $8 or $9 million, a negative delta, if you will. Then we get to 2023. The risk is we don't know the interest rate environment. That's your delta. The present value back from the end of the second tranche is insulting unless I'm missing something. We go into that decision, the immediate decision to retire the first tranche versus the next tranche. The immediate negative is about a $9 million negative trade-off versus cash that we're earning on our cash versus debt. The difference between paying the debt and relieving the cash and investing on the cash. So that $9-10 million risk is an interest rate revenue risk in terms of paying off the second tranche. And we just go into the marketplace and buy a hedge on that. And this is the danger of putting a dollars and cents discussion before a big picture philosophy discussion about the debt of an agency or any entity and what our approach to it should be. How compelling is it? What decisions should we make about debt versus cash on the books when we look ahead as an agency? By putting a refi opportunity on the front end as a conversation starter to the bigger debt question is asked backwards. And this, I mean, and then this notion and to ask the board to accept those figures is ask them to be naive around fiscal matters, with all due respect. Because whether we retire this tranche or the next tranche, the only difference is, assuming our balance sheet looks about the same to the street, the only difference is the interest rate risk. That's the only difference. And we start behind the 8 ball 9 or 10 million bucks. Because instead of paying, 3 months from now, instead of paying interest on the debt, we're collecting a few bucks. Instead of not paying, being relieved of the interest on the debt, we're picking up a few bucks on investment return. So I think what we really need is a full board meeting about how much debt we carry as an agency. What am I missing?
So yeah, so the analysis, and we provided further details to the committee, of course. But the analysis, so first of all, let's look big picture of where the market is today. Long-term rates are very low historically. Short-term rates are higher than average. So we're comparing what
I'm aware of that. They're also lower than the last time we refinanced and we had this exact same conversation.
So now the comparison though in that, and the question that was asked is, should we use some of the cash, which is, yes, it's earning less than what we would be paying on the
By about
bonds.
3%.
Right. Okay.
2.5 to 3.
So since we're earning a little bit better than normal on the short-term funds, and we can lock in now till final maturity.
I'm sorry, we're earning a little bit better than normal. We're earning historically less than normal.
We currently rates are a little bit higher than they've been over this last several years. Let's put it that way. So if we can lock in now an interest rate that is very low, knowing that we have bonds that are already outstanding at higher amounts, but they're not currently callable. So that was the analysis. The analysis was on looking at what's the better use of your cash? Is it using it towards paying off something that right now we can capture in the market and lock in all the way to the final maturity at a very low rate, or waiting a few years and paying off? So that's where I'm not understanding the interest rate risk on the future, because if the board so chooses to use the cash at that point in, say, in 5 years, if you want to take the 6%.
The next tranche is fully callable. The next tranche is fully callable. All
Sure.
3 tranches are the same. So it's a $10 million versus interest rate risk, no matter how you look at it.
So let's use the example, which I think was a more compelling one in my opinion. of the other current interest bonds out there, these are not term rate bonds. They will just sit there and mature off as they're scheduled to mature off. And they're earning as much as they're paying as much as 6%. So what we're saying and what the committee agreed
They're
with.
not callable.
They
It's the
are
sec-
callable
okay.
in 2024.
The second tranche.
No, this is not the second tranche. This is other current interest bonds. These are
Okay.
2013 As. So we have our full debt, the whole structure that we're talking about here.
Anything fully callable can be called.
And it won't be callable until 2024. And at that point, we should reserve and hold our cash to do that because that's more expensive bonds than.
What does that have? What you call it, it's gone.
Exactly. We're going to use the cash to pay off debt that's at a higher rate than what we
But
can
if you've
lock
got
in
the
today.
same balance sheet, you just reissue it. It's callable. It's $100,000 to flip it in the market. It's a $10 million equation versus interest rate. That's all it is. And to ask people to evaluate it in the context of longer term interest rates is fiscally irresponsible. I'm sorry. It's not, you're reissuing $125 million in debt if we don't use cash to pay this next tranche. You reissue that same $125 million in 3 years. You just have interest rate
No, I
risk.
don't. This is locking in the interest all the way to the end.
It's going to be on any issue you do. We have to take it one off. I have to vote against it, and we'll take it one off. You're.
I mean, I have.
I agree. Let's take this offline, and I don't respect calling my staff irresponsible. I'm very irritated by
I
that.
said the example. I didn't call her irresponsible.
You
The
implied
example's
that.
irresponsible.
So I agree, let's take this offline. PFM is here. You guys can meet after this meeting, but this was not going the right way.
You took it that way. I didn't mean
Director Marriott, with all due respect, my great friend, the mayor of City of San Juan Capistrano, you should have had this kind of discussions with our chief financial officer before the meeting. I know you're going through
I
the.
just heard the report.
No,
today.
your
You're
points.
asking me to make a $125
No,
million decision.
no, your points are well taken, but this kind of discussions, nuts and bolts. I know you're an expert in finance. You could have sat down with the CFO before the meeting. So at this juncture, when we're racing against time and we wanted to move on, then you bring up all these issues.
Well, $125 million decision, no time to race against time. But I didn't mean for you to take offense. You know, I like your work.
We have the experts here. You guys can meet after
do
the
it one
meeting.
PFM's here.
Very good. Director Kelly?
Yes, I do serve on that committee, and we did have extensive discussions, and I would like to really commend Mrs. Potter and the team for the resourcefulness that they have put into this, and the ability that we have right now to lock in those lower interest rates, I think is invaluable for us to go ahead and move forward with that. There was discussion about paying off the bonds, and it was not recommended. I fully support the discussion that we have, and we did get this report in our agendas. We got this, what was it, a week ago, or at least a few days ago?
More than a week ago.
Yeah, yes. So we have had this information, and I studied it here, I studied it in committee, and I think this is a good move, and I fully support it, and I will, do we have a motion
Thank you.
already?
Not yet. Any other discussions?
Okay.
All right, please
Okay.
proceed.
That there's a second. Or whoever did the second.
Okay, there's a
So
motion.
we're still in the discussion, but I do support it.
Okay. Oh, I beg your pardon. Supervisor Chafee.
Well, thank you. I'd like to thank Amy Potter for coming and meeting with me, and we went through this item. I still disagree with where the interest rates might be, having looked at that. I do have a couple of questions. So my understanding, this issuance, the remarketed issue, we have a 10-year call.
Correct.
Is that a full or a partial? Can we do a partial, or will it be a full call? Is it possible to add a second call at 20 years?
We can anytime add.
Yeah, I mean, it's been done. We can look at it and see,
Please go to the podium for the record.
and identify yourself for the record.
Hi, Bob Rich with PFM. Anytime you put any kind of additional optionality into a transaction like a call, there's cost to it, so we can evaluate the cost. Some calls are shorter, some calls are longer, but there's always a cost. We evaluate
No,
that.
I appreciate that, but I'm hearing the concern about should we pay this off early or not? And every time you have a call opportunity, you have an opportunity to pay it off.
Right.
And it seems to me if it shouldn't be too great a cost if you add a second call at 20 years. There's one at 10, as I understand it.
Well,
Mr. Chairman.
let me
Please.
just add one comment. You can call it at any time after 10 years.
Oh, there is an automatic
Yeah,
provision
it's not-
upon
it's
giving
not a
some.
one-time option.
Oh,
It's a-
okay, I didn't understand that. I appreciate
That was my understanding.
Okay, so it is not, once that 10-year
Right.
call opportunity passes, it continues.
Yeah,
I
thought
understand.
you were meaning only 2 calls as opposed to 100. Okay.
Okay, I understand that now, and I appreciate that. I like that a lot better with that understanding. I do have an issue with interest rates still. I try to follow these things. I've been involved in the issuance of quite a few bond issues, so I follow these things rather closely. Right now, we have a market anomaly where we have a number of short-term rates higher than long-term rates. And there's actually a hunger and shortage of quality California municipal bonds out there. And I think that I would see this rate, if it were done right now today, somewhere around 3%, not 4%. I think that's achievable. And when I look at the numbers presented at 4%, we're saving about $1.25 million a year as a projection. At 3%, it's $2.5 million a year that could be saved. So my concern is when we talk about 4%, I think we're setting the bar kind of high. Now it looks like, gee, we got you in at 3 3/4. Good job. Well, I don't think so. So I'd like to see the rate at about where I think the market is, and that's taking into account the duration, the 34 years, and the rating, the A-. I wish we could get a little higher on the rating. I'm curious as what we need to do to get a little higher. Yeah, so anyway, I compliment the idea. I think it's very prudent that we remarket the bonds. And it looks like the sooner the better, the way the market is right now. I had earlier expressed concerns about taking a little more time, but I think the time is just as soon as we can. That's what it's looking like to me. So with that, I support the proposal, and we'll see where it goes.
Thank you, Director Chafee. At this juncture,
May
the
I call a
final
question?
motion. Oh, question?
Call a question.
Please.
Go ahead.
You just call the question.
Call a vote.
Okay, I'm asking for the motion.
Thank you.
Okay.
You already have a motion.
The motion is second on the floor.
So
I moved it.
it was moved by Director Miller. It was seconded by Director Crane. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposing? So noted. Director Marriott is the only no. Thank you very much. CEO's report.
I just want to update in your agenda, it calls for the next board meeting to be July 11th, I believe. And right now, I would advise you that we will be canceling that meeting because of a light agenda. So our next meeting will be August 8th. Also, please check your emails and your committee meeting announcements because we'll have a corresponding reduction of committee meetings towards the end of June since we won't be having a July board meeting, and then we'll resume our committee meetings third week of August. Thank you very much.
All right. Any chairs comments?
Well, I just wanted to mention to the board that Director Menegar, myself, our CEO, and our CFO will be going back with our, I guess, our bond counsel, right, to New York on Tuesday for 4 days. We'll be back on Friday to meet with the rating agencies. So hopefully we can do exactly what Director Chafee said, is to get our ratings up.
Thank you. There is no closed session items for discussion. The meeting is adjourned.